Dual Cultivation audiobook by Kevin Chapter 901, Extreme Cold Resistance Pills. Welcome back to the Crystal Armory, esteemed guests. The manager there recognized Su Yang at glance because of his unique and round figure. "Are the clothes ready?" Su Yang asked him. "Yes. In fact, we completed them last week. Please, follow me to the dressing room to try them out." Su Yang nodded and followed him to a room at the back of the store where their clothes that were actually large jackets were waiting. "This one is yours and this one is for the young lady." The manager showed them their clothes. "If it doesn't fit or something feels off, please let me know." "Not bad, it fits my body perfectly and it's soft." Su Yang nodded in approval. "What about you?" Su Yang turned to look at Xiao Rong. "It's perfect," she said. "Well, the fitting is perfect, but what about the formation in these clothes itself? After all, without the formation to protect us from the cold, this piece of clothing will only be an ordinary jacket." The manager showed a confident smile on his face and said, "Our crystal armory has served customers for over 100,000 years. If we would dare to pull such a stunt or make such mistakes, we would have long been shut down. However, if you're not satisfied, you're free to check the formation yourself if you know how." Su Yang nodded and said, "It's not that I don't trust your store. I just want to make sure, since the frozen Asgard isn't a place for mistakes." He then began making symbols in the air with his fingers, dumbfounding the manager with his profound speed and precise movements. Once the symbols were completed, Su Yang touched the jackets with them, revealing the formation in their jackets. Su Yang took a moment to inspect the formation before nodding with a satisfied smile on his face. "Looks good to me. Thanks." Su Yang then handed the manager the tokens. I'm glad to hear that." The manager muttered in a dazed voice, silently wondering to himself the identity of this fatty who just displayed profound formation skills that surpasses even the person who refined the jackets. In fact, if it weren't for his lack of cultivation base, Su Yang could have easily created these jackets by himself without waiting for so long. "Let's go," Su Yang said to Xiao Rong before leaving the building. Once they were outside, Su Yang went to another store that was only a street away from the Crystal Armory. Xiao Rong looked at the store with interest, as it emitted many unique scents that she has never experienced before. Upon entering the store, Su Yang walked straight to the reception and said, "Let me get 10 extreme cold resistance pills of flawless quality." "That would be 5 high-grade spirit stones," said the man behind the desk. "5 high-grade spirit stones." Su Yang raised his eyebrows. "Since when did the price increase so dramatically? The last time I bought them, they were half as expensive." "When was the last time you bought pills?" 1,000 years ago." The man behind the counter sneered, and he continued, "Flawless quality pills are no longer as common as they used to be. In fact, the price of medicine and pills has skyrocketed since the god of alchemy stopped conducting pills 1,000 years ago." "What?" Su Yang's eyes widened with shock when he heard this, and he asked, "Did she retire or something?" Even though he asked this question, Su Yang knew that wasn't possible. Knowing the god of alchemy who loved alchemy more than even her own life, there was no way that she'd give up on alchemy. Only she knows, but she hasn't produced a single pill for over 1,000 years now, despite countless people begging her to do so. The man shrugged. "I see," Su Yang muttered in a low voice. "Well, are you going to buy the pills or what?" Su Yang nodded before taking out 5 high-grade spirit stones and handing them to the man. The man went to the back of the store before returning 5 minutes later with 2 bottles, each with 5 blue pills inside. Su Yang accepted the 2 bottles and stored one inside his storage ring before handing the other one to Xiao Rong. After leaving the store a moment later, Su Yang tilted his head to look at the sky with a somewhat dazed expression on his face. "Just what is happening in the divine heavens?" he mumbled in a low voice. Sometime later, Su Yang left the city with Xiao Rong on the flying treasure. We're going to fly straight to the entrance of the frozen Asgard, and since flying treasures do not work there, we'll have to travel on foot, Su Yang said to her. I mean, you can fly, but it'll attract the magical beasts there, and you don't want that. Before we enter the frozen Asgard, we need to consume one of the extreme cold resistance pill. Although the jacket is already good enough, it's never a bad idea to have an extra layer of defense in such a dangerous place. Xiao Rong then said, wouldn't it be easier if I entered your Danshan, master? Su Yang smiled and said, of course, you can do that, but I'm sure you'd rather stay outside with me, right? Xiao Rong quickly nodded her head and she said, thank you, master. You don't have to thank me. This is compensation for not letting you roam around freely even though I know that you really want to. Once the time is right, I will let you go play as much as you want, but for now, bear with it. I understand, Xiao Rong said. Chapter 902, entering the frozen Asgard about 2 weeks after Su Yang and Xiao Rong left the city with their supplies. They arrived outside a massive mountain range that had an ongoing blizzard. The blizzard was so powerful that they weren't able to see more than a dozen meters into the distance, and in their eyes there was only the color white ahead. Wear the jacket and swallow one of the extreme cold resistance pills. The pill will last for 2 weeks, Su Yang said to Xiao Rong. Xiao Rong nodded and wore the jacket that covered her from neck to toes, and once she wore the hood, it covered her head as well. She then consumed one of the blue pills, and she immediately felt her body growing warmer. Once they were prepared, Su Yang descended the flying treasure about 10 miles from the entrance of the frozen Asgard before storing it away. They began making their way towards the frozen Asgard from there. Even though they were many miles away from the frozen Asgard, the chill from the blizzard was already affecting them. When the jacket sensed the cold, it automatically activated the formation hidden within, and very quickly, the coldness subsided. As they approached the entrance to the frozen Asgard, Su Yang could see people camped beside the road. Despite frozen Asgard's dangerous environment, people from around the divine heavens would come to this place in search of treasures, and if they're not looking for treasures, they were here for training. And because of the extreme cold, frozen Asgard is not only the perfect place for yin element treasures to appear, it is also the perfect place for women to cultivate. Hence, why most of the people gathered there at this moment were women. When Su Yang passed by these women, they all looked at him with interest. In their eyes, 2 sovereign spirit realm cultivators entering the frozen Asgard was akin to seeking death, and it was rare to see men around this place when the azure lotus wasn't even close to blooming. Su Yang also looked at these women with interest, but it was not because of their beauty. Most of the women gathered here appeared to be disciples from various sects, and Su Yang recognized all of them by their uniforms. I recognize their uniforms, but I do not recognize these people. What a weird feeling, Su Yang thought to himself. Back when he was still active within the 4 divine heavens, he would rarely not recognize a woman even if they were just an ordinary disciple, especially if they were cultivators from prominent sects. The guards standing at the entrance of the frozen Asgard raised their eyebrows when they saw Su Yang and Xiao Rong approaching them. Although they were not ordinary guards and were only there to make sure no magical beasts escaped from frozen Asgard, they still couldn't help but stop Su Yang. Hey, are you sure you want to go inside? You're both only sovereigns, the guards asked them. Yes, Su Yang nodded. Well, good luck, I guess. The guards didn't say anything else, as it wasn't their job to decide who gets to go inside and who doesn't. Su Yang and Xiao Rong entered the narrow entrance a moment later, and after walking for another 10 miles in this narrow path, they have officially entered the frozen Asgard. The moment they stepped foot inside the frozen Asgard, tiny ice particles began hitting them in the face, and despite covering themselves in spiritual energy, these seemingly ordinary ice particles tore right through them, making them feel as though there were insects pricking their face. "Master, how will you know where to go?" "There's nothing but snow here," Zio Rong said to him. Before them was a massive land of snow that went as high as Su Yang's legs, and for Zio Rong it consumed half of her body. And since they can only see a couple of meters into the distance, it was impossible to see where they're going. It's near impossible to navigate inside the frozen Asgard through normal means. However, I know exactly how many steps we need to take to reach our destination. Just follow my steps and don't wander around because there are invisible holes everywhere in the frozen Asgard that are covered in snow. One wrong step and you'll fall to your death." Zio Rong nodded. "The first hidden passage is exactly 103,021 steps from this place. It'll probably take us around 3 days to get there, and we have a little less than 2 months left. Let's go." Su Yang began walking in the land of snow with confident and large strides despite not being able to see where he was walking, and Zio Rong followed him from behind. 1,000 steps, 10,000 steps, 20,000 steps. Su Yang subconsciously counted every single step he took, and after he reached a certain number of steps, he would turn either left or right, rarely stopping his movements. Although Su Yang made it seem easy, almost like he was taking a stroll in the park, it was actually an incredible feat that unless one had extensive knowledge about the frozen Asgard, one wouldn't be able to replicate it. 3 days later, they arrived in front of a narrow path in the middle of nowhere before they even knew it. This is the first hidden passage. It's actually about 50,000 miles long. We can fly here since there won't be any powerful magical beasts, and it's a straight passage from one end to the other," Su Yang said to Zio Rong. Thus, they stopped walking on foot and began flying through this passage with extreme speed, and since the blizzard couldn't reach this area, they were able to see much further than usual. They would occasionally run into magical beasts in this passage, but they were all around the sovereign spirit realm, and Su Yang would take care of them with his sword Qi before they could even react. A few days later, they reached the end of this passage. "We're back to walking now, but the next passage is only around 20,000 steps away. Let's go." Chapter 903. Ice Cavern. A few hours after Su Yang and Zio Rong exited the first hidden passage, they arrived at the second hidden passage that had a zigzagging pathway, which made it difficult if not near impossible to fly there without getting a headache. Thus, Su Yang and Zio Rong could only resort to walking this passage. 10 minutes later, they encountered a large magical beast that resembled a wolf, and it was covered in white fur. This magical beast emitted intense bloodthirst, and the moment it saw Su Yang and Zio Rong, its eyes glowed with redness while its mouth drooled with saliva. After months of wandering around, it has finally encountered humans. However, before it can even fantasize about consuming these humans, Su Yang gently waved his sleeves, sending a blade of devastating sword Qi flying towards it, mutilating its body in half almost instantly. Half an hour later, they encountered another magical beast. Then another 10 minutes later, Su Yang raised his eyebrows at how many magical beasts they have encountered thus far. Normally, he would rarely encounter a magical beast in the hidden passage if ever, yet he has already encountered a couple in just a few days, and they were only in the outer areas. Did something happen in the frozen Asgard? Su Yang wondered to himself. There have only been a few occasions where magical beasts would show up in the hidden passages and outer areas when a powerful magical beast chased the weaker magical beasts out from the inside. A couple of hours later, Su Yang and Zio Rong arrived at the exit of the hidden passage. "Master," Zio Rong looked at him when they were suddenly blocked by a massive frozen ocean that reached the horizon after leaving the passage. "It's all right. This frozen ocean has always been here," Su Yang said to her. "Follow me." Su Yang then began flying over the frozen ocean. Zio Rong didn't ask any questions and followed him. The two of them continued to fly for almost an entire week on this seemingly endless ocean that has been frozen for heaven knows how long. "We're here," Su Yang suddenly said. However, this cavern had a huge block of ice blocking it. Once they landed, Su Yang said, "Give me a minute to remove the blockade. It's actually a formation." He proceeded to sit in front of the cavern and closed his eyes, seemingly gathering spiritual energy. After absorbing enough spiritual energy, Su Yang opened his eyes and began moving his arms very quickly. Tens, hundreds, thousands of symbols began appearing in the air before flying towards the ice blocking the cavern. A moment later, the ice block began melting, revealing a small entrance. Su Yang entered this suspicious cavern in the middle of nowhere casually. Once inside, there was a small room that resembled the interior of a cave, and there were a couple of words engraved on the ice wall, looking like sword marks. "My love for you will last an eternity, just like this place that has been frozen since the primordial era." Zio Rong read the words on the ice wall in a low voice. Hearing these words coming from another's mouth makes me want to go back in time and convince the old me to not write these words. A bittersweet smile appeared on Su Yang's face. "You wrote these words, Master?" Zio Rong asked him. "Yes, I wrote them. In fact, this little cavern was made by me, and I had even cultivated here for a few hundred years while waiting for the azure lotus to bloom. As for why we're here," Su Yang pointed to the formation on the ground and continued, "This is a formation that will take us to the center of the frozen Asgard. If we want to travel to the frozen azure cave normally, it'll take us at least a couple of years even with the hidden passages since the frozen Asgard is immensely vast. This formation is the only way we can reach our destination in a short amount of time. Hopefully, the formation is still functional. It's been at least 20,000 years since I last used it after all. Anyways, make yourself at home while I try to work this formation out. It'll take at least 3 days. If you want to look around this place, go ahead, but don't go too far, though there's really nothing to see in this place besides the frozen ocean." "Okay." Zio Rong nodded before walking to the entrance without actually going outside, as the blizzard was still raging, and she didn't like the sensation of ice fragments hitting her face. Zio Rong used her spiritual sense to look at the frozen ocean beneath the massive layer of ice, and to her surprise, there were many massive magical beasts dwelling deep within the water. Furthermore, all of these magical beasts emitted power at the ancient realm, if not even more powerful. When the magical beasts sensed Zio Rong looking at them, they released a powerful aura that caused the ocean to tremble slightly, sending chills down Zio Rong's back. If it were not for the unbreakable ice protecting Zio Rong, the magical beasts would have definitely tried to attack her. This was probably Zio Rong's first time experiencing fear, and after that terrifying experience, she went back inside the cavern and remained close to Su Yang. "Did you look inside the water?" Su Yang asked her after seeing her nervous expression. Zio Rong nodded silently. "Ha ha ha, it was quite shocking, eh?" The magical beasts dwelling inside the waters of the frozen Asgard are some of the most powerful and terrifying entities in the celestial heaven. You don't want to mess with them. Luckily for us and the rest of the world, they cannot leave the water due to the layer of ice separating the water and the outside world. If the ice ever melts and these guys leave the water, it's probably going to be a hellish experience for the celestial heaven. Su Yang laughed out loud. Chapter 904, Primordial Mammoth. 5 days have passed since Su Yang and Zio Rong arrived at the ice cavern. During this time, Su Yang remained still in the middle of the formation while Xiao Rong lazed around on the floor made of pure ice in her beast form. Okay, I am finally done. Fortunately, the formation is still intact. Although it was damaged, I managed to fix it, hence why it took 2 extra days. Xiao Rong, are you ready? Su Yang asked her. Xiao Rong transformed back into her human form before nodding. Give me a minute to seal this cavern back up. Su Yang then restored the ice block in front of the entrance. Sometime later, both Su Yang and Xiao Rong stood on this invisible formation at the center of the room. After taking a deep breath, Su Yang created a single symbol before dropping it on the formation. The next second, the formation began flowing with spiritual energy before emitting beautiful blue light. Whoosh! Su Yang and Xiao Rong disappeared from the ice cavern, appearing a few 100,000 miles away. Once their transportation was completed, Xiao Rong looked around. They appeared to be inside another ice cavern, but it was much more spacious here compared to the last location. We are currently just right outside the center area, but we still need to travel another 100,000 miles before we reach the frozen azure cave, Su Yang said to her. However, before we enter the center of the frozen Asgard, we must prepare ourselves. Su Yang then walked to a certain spot in the ice cavern before releasing a small amount of his sword will. The entire cavern suddenly began shaking, almost as though there was an active earthquake. The trembling didn't last long, disappearing 10 seconds later. What was that just now, Master? Xiao Rong asked him. He didn't immediately respond, merely pointing at the wall that suddenly had a hole in it, and inside this hole was a small wooden box that could fit even on a child's palms. Su Yang retrieved the box and opened it to show Xiao Rong the inside. What is this? Xiao Rong raised her eyebrows upon seeing the near-transparent object shaped into a perfect circle resting inside the box. This marble is our lifeline just in case something goes astray. It's an expensive treasure that allows you to set a location. Once you have a location set, you can break the marble to return to that location with no limit. So no matter where you are in the 4 divine heavens, you will be able to return to that location. If we run into trouble that even I cannot deal with, we will escape the frozen Asgard using this marble. However, to be completely honest with you, I don't want to use this treasure, since there's a 99% chance that I will perish if I go to the set location in my current state, Su Yang said with a weird smile on his face. Anyways, are you ready? The center area is completely different compared to the outer area. They exited the ice cavern a moment later, and to Xiao Rong's surprise, the blizzard was nowhere to be seen. However, when she looked at the horizon, she could see a white wall. The center of the frozen Asgard doesn't have any blizzards. In fact, the blizzard only circles around the frozen Asgard like some kind of phenomenon. Nobody knows why, but if one looked at the frozen Asgard from the starry sky, they'd be able to see a massive and thick white ring around the place. It's pretty neat. However, the blizzard is the least of everyone's worries in the frozen Asgard. Su Yang suddenly pointed in a certain direction and said, "Look over there." Xiao Rong turned to look in the direction he was pointing, and she immediately noticed a small red dot moving in the sky. What is that? When Xiao Rong saw this red dot, her entire body shivered for some reason. That's the eye of a magical beast you're looking at, he said with a smile on his face. What? Xiao Rong's eyes widened with surprise. That dot in the sky is an eye. That magical beast is named Primordial Mammoth, and it is one of the oldest and most powerful creatures in the celestial heaven. Its size is so huge that it could traverse hundreds of miles in a single step. As for its cultivation, nobody really knows, Su Yang said. Fortunately for us, the primordial mammoth doesn't leave the frozen Asgard, and it's not aggressive if we don't provoke it. The last time a cultivator provoked the primordial mammoth, The whole celestial heaven shook for an entire minute due to a single stomp from it. As for that individual who provoked it, let's just say his body became so flat that it disappeared from existence. The four divine heavens is filled with mythical and heaven-defying creatures such as the primordial mammoth. Pretty cool, right? Zio Rong was speechless. The only thing she could feel when looking at the red dot was fear and dismay. Anyway, let's continue moving forward. The frozen Asgard may be filled with dangerous magical beasts, but if you know where to go and where not to go, it's really not that bad. Su Yang said to her a moment later. Thus, Su Yang and Zio Rong continued their journey in the frozen Asgard. Meanwhile, about 100,000 miles away from Su Yang's location, after arriving at the frozen Azure Cave, Luo Zi entered the small cave with a somewhat dazed look on her face. The interior of the cave was quite beautiful. Despite having no light shining into the place, the walls emitted a gentle blue glow that illuminated the place, and there was a small pond at the center of this cave that emitted the most light. One would expect the water in this pond to be frozen due to the extreme cold weather, but that was not the case, and the water even showed no signs of freezing. Luo Zi approached the glowing pond and proceeded to stare at her reflection on the still water in silence for many minutes. Chapter 905 Underground. Do you see that cave over there? Su Yang suddenly said to Zio Rong after walking for a couple of days without uttering a single word. Zio Rong turned to look at what Su Yang was looking at, and sure enough, there was a cave entrance there. However, this entrance was barely big enough to fit a single person inside. That cave will lead us underground, and once we enter it, we won't be leaving for the next 50,000 miles. It is also the last safe shortcut in the frozen Asgard. There are still hidden passages after this one, but they won't be as safe, as they are quite spacious, so the larger magical beasts sometimes wander in there. A few minutes later, they arrived before the cave entrance, and Su Yang had to forcefully squeeze himself through the narrow entrance because of his round figure. In fact, he even damaged the entrance a little by doing so. As for Zio Rong, her petite frame allowed her to enter with ease. Once they were inside, it became incredibly dark, so dark that unless one had some kind of vision technique that allowed them to see the dark, they wouldn't be able to see a thing. Of course, Su Yang had the perfect technique for this place, and after covering his eyes with some spiritual energy, he was able to see everything without any problems. Let's consume another extreme cold resistance pill. Even though there aren't any blizzards here, there are some areas in this place that are even colder than outside, Su Yang said. After consuming the pill, they began moving again. As they walked deeper and deeper into the cave, Zio Rong noticed that they were slowly descending deeper into the ground, and eventually they arrived before a massive slope made of pure ice that was so deep that they couldn't physically see the bottom of the slope. Don't worry, this place may seem dangerous, but it's actually pretty fun, Su Yang said with a smile on his face. He then took a seat at the edge of the slope and patted his lap. Come sit here. Zio Rong nodded and took a seat on his lap. Su Yang then embraced her from behind before pushing himself down the icy slope. The two of them immediately began sliding down the slope at extreme speed. In fact, it took them nearly half an hour to reach the end. What do you think? Su Yang asked her afterward, feeling a weird sensation on his buttocks after sliding down for so long. It was fun, she said. He smiled. Then let's continue. The cave was dead silent, and the only thing they could hear was the sound of their own footsteps, breathing, and the beats of their heart. They continued to walk without any rest for 2 days until Su Yang came to a sudden halt. Wait. Zio Rong, who was dozing off and had been subconsciously walking this entire time, snapped back to reality when she bumped into Su Yang's back. What is it, master? Zio Rong asked him afterward. I can sense people ahead of us, he said to her. Xiao Rong then used her spiritual sense to look further into the distance, and sure enough, there were people there. In fact, there appeared to be hundreds if not thousands of people there, and all of them were dressed in similar clothes, almost like disciples from a sect. Now this is a surprise. A profound smile appeared on Su Yang's face once he recognized their uniform. Although it took him a moment, there was a good reason why he didn't recognize them instantly. They're the restrained Yin sect, one of the most secretive powers in the celestial heaven and also one of the more powerful places. Many cultivators can live their entire life not seeing a single disciple from that place since they rarely leave the sect, and when they do, they go to places where people normally don't go. Also, they're a female-only sect. They also cultivate a special technique that allows them to eat yin element treasures with ease while obtaining its full effects, while normal people would only be able to take advantage of a small portion of the treasure's effects. Now that I think about it, their sect master mentioned one time about how they would train in the frozen Asgard every 1,000 years for 10 years, but she never told me the exact location. I should have expected it would be this location since the area up ahead is a little special in the way that it has an extreme amount of yin element gathered enough to kill even a sovereign spirit realm cultivator like me if I am not prepared. Anyway, if we don't disturb them, they probably won't make things too difficult for us, but be prepared to be questioned by them, Su Yang said, and he began approaching them. Once Su Yang was close enough to see their faces, one of the disciples that wore a different uniform than the others approached him with a serious look on her face, and she was an extremely beautiful middle-aged woman. "Who are you and what is your purpose here?" she asked him with a hint of surprise hidden within her gaze. After all, it was quite shocking to see two sovereign spirit realm cultivators appearing so deep within the frozen Asgard. It could even be considered a miracle that they made it here without any injuries. Name's Xiao Yang, and we're just passing through this place to get to the other side, Su Yang said to her with a friendly smile on his round face. Author's note: there is a new voting system for called golden tickets for the premium novels that will reset once a month. You can get them through spending coins or gifting the novel a certain amount, 500 plus. If you don't have this in your app, update the app. Therefore, in order to bribe you into voting, I shall give you 3 bonus chapters, including daily chapters, for both Dual Cultivation and Cultivation Online if Heroes Carnage, my new novel, reaches 1,000 golden tickets. Chapter 906, Restrained Yin Sect, Xiao Yang. What is your purpose for coming to this dangerous place? I'm talking about the frozen Asgard. The woman asked him, clearly still doubtful of his identity and purpose there. I have some business at the frozen Azure Cave, and this cave is the safest route there, Su Yang responded. And you can't tell me the reason? The woman continued to question him for more details. As a highly secretive and seclusive sect, it was normal for them to act like this, as there were plenty of people spying on them, and any new information about their sect would be worth a fortune to information brokers and those with unkind intentions. After a moment of silence, he said, "We're meeting someone there. As for that person's identity, I'm sorry, but I cannot tell you." The best thing to do in this situation was to tell them the truth without revealing everything, as he knew that disciples of the restrained Yin sect have multiple methods that can tell whether someone was lying or not. Furthermore, this beautiful woman before him was an ancient realm expert. Even if Xiao Rong can defeat her with his assistance, it would be a pain in the ass to deal with the other disciples, and he didn't want to hurt these people, as he has a special relationship with their sect master. The woman narrowed her eyes at Su Yang's chubby face before turning to look at Xiao Rong. The two of you managed to make it to the center of the frozen Asgard without any injuries. In fact, you look extremely calm, almost like you're taking a stroll in the park. Well, I happen to have a lot of knowledge regarding the frozen Asgard, including all of the hidden passages, hence why I am here right now, he said. Even if that is the case that you know all of the hidden passages, getting here unscathed is an entirely different story. We also took the hidden passages here, but none of us made it here unscathed, said the woman, continuing to doubt him. I don't know what to tell you. Perhaps we got super lucky. Su Yang shrugged. The woman didn't find his joke funny and even pulled out a sword before pointing it at him. Su Yang raised his hands in a surrendering manner and said, "Whoa, calm down. I know the restrained Yin sect is a secretive place, so I don't blame you at all for your over-the-top cautiousness, but you need to calm down. Not everyone in this world is out to spy on you ladies." What did you just say? The woman's eyes widened with surprise. Meanwhile, the woman questioning Su Yang suddenly began emitting killing intent, and she spoke in a cold voice. "Unless you're a spy, there's no way you'd know that we're from the restrained Yin sect." "What? Your uniform says everything." "That's impossible. These are not our ordinary sect uniforms. We only wear them when we go outside for training so that people won't recognize us." Su Yang chuckled and said, "Yes, I know. I also know that your sect master is named Liang Zume, and she really likes to chew on ice. Oh, right. I can even tell you the hideout of your sect in the eternal boom." The place suddenly shook as all of the disciples there suddenly began emitting killing intent. If Su Yang dared to continue his sentence, they might kill him before he could even finish his sentence. Su Yang smiled and said after a long pause, "Anyway, my point is that I already know everything there is to know about your restrained Yin sect, so there's no point in me spying on you guys." "Who are you really? How do you know so much about our sect?" the woman asked him with a deep frown on her face. "I told you already. I'm Zio Yang," he responded with a gentle smile on his face. "Bullshit. You know damn well that's not what I want to know," she exclaimed in an angry voice. And she continued, "If you don't tell me, I will kill you right here and now." "Are you sure that you want to kill me when you don't know anything about me?" Su Yang said, the smile on his face turning cold. "If I die today, your sect's million-year legacy might crumble and you will be blamed for it." Hearing Su Yang's words, the woman's body and facial expression froze. "Anyway, I don't have all day here. I promise you that nothing will happen if you act like our encounter never happened today," Su Yang said, and he began moving again, walking around the woman. To the disciples' surprise, the woman didn't attack Su Yang and allowed him to walk past her. "Also, I will eventually visit the restrained Yin sect to speak with your sect master Liang Zume if she's still the sect master. Until then, keep our meeting here a secret. We both know that she will most likely throw a tantrum if you tell her that some stranger you don't recognize has so much information about her sect." "Elder, what should we do?" one of the disciples asked her afterward, breaking the silence. The woman bit her lips and said, "Forget about that damn fatty. Forget about our conversation. Forget about everything that has happened here today. If you want to experience the sect master's fury, by all means, go ahead and tell her what happened today." She continued. The disciples swallowed nervously when they imagined their sect master angry. If they do such a thing, they will not be the only ones to suffer, as every disciple in the sect will suffer alongside them, and none of them wanted that to happen. After a moment of silence, one by one, the disciples began swearing that they wouldn't utter a single word about what happened today, even if they were tortured. Author's note: there is a new voting system for called golden tickets for the premium novels that will reset once a month. You can get them through spending coins or gifting the novel a certain amount, 500 plus. If you don't have this in your app, update the app. Therefore, in order to bribe you into voting, I shall give you 3 bonus chapters, including daily chapters, for both Dual Cultivation and Cultivation Online if Heroes Carnage, my new novel, reaches 1,000 golden tickets. Chapter 907, Returning to the Surface After Leaving the Restricted Yin Sect Behind. Su Yang released a sigh of relief. Fortunately, that elder was relatively new and still somewhat inexperienced. If it were any other elders, they would have probably killed me even if they knew the risks. Anyway, let's speed up. We have less than a month to reach the frozen azure cave, and at our current pace, we will be late. Xiao Rong nodded, and they proceeded to fly through the rest of the cave. A couple of days later, they arrived before a massive underground lake that managed to remain as a liquid despite the cold temperature. When Xiao Rong saw this lake, she instinctively stopped flying and even backed up a little bit, as she still recalled the magical beasts beneath the frozen ocean. Did the magical beasts in the frozen ocean traumatize you? Su Yang chuckled when he saw her acting so nervous. Don't worry. While there are magical beasts inside the water, they're not as powerful as the magical beasts outside. In fact, they're actually extremely weak if we compare them to the others, as they are mostly below the heavenly spirit realm. Furthermore, if you cook these magical beasts and eat their meat, it can improve your yin qi significantly. Do you want to try eating some? Xiao Rong nodded. All right, give me a moment. Su Yang then approached the lake and stood in front of the water. After staring at the water in silence for many minutes, Su Yang suddenly moved his arm, sending a single strand of sword will into the water, almost like a fishing rod. A moment later, he pulled his hand back, pulling the string out of the water, and at the end of the sword will, there was a blue-colored fish with semi-transparent scales the size of his arm. Su Yang used his sword qi to decapitate its head before using his alchemy flames to cook it. The scales on the fish automatically melted like ice the moment it touched the alchemy flames. It only took a minute for the fish to fully be cooked. Here you go. Su Yang handed the cooked fish to Xiao Rong, whose eyes were flickering with excitement. After her first bite, Xiao Rong continued to take chunks out of the fish, and in less than a minute she consumed the whole fish. What do you think? Do you like it? Su Yang asked her afterward. Yes. Seeing Xiao Rong acting this lively for the first time, Su Yang smiled and said, Do you want more? There are plenty of them in the water. Xiao Rong quickly nodded her head. Su Yang then returned to fishing for more fish. An hour later, Xiao Rong had consumed over 100 fish in the water, and her yin qi improved by leaps and bounds. Are you satisfied now? Su Yang asked her. Yes, thank you, master, Xiao Rong said. Then let's continue. There are places out there that sell these fish so you can eat more in the future. Once they were prepared, Su Yang and Xiao Rong began flying over the lake until they reached the end about a day later. At the end of the lake was a dead end, but there was no ceiling above them, which made things pretty obvious. We're going to fly straight up now, he said to her. A moment later they began flying up, returning to the surface an hour later. Once they landed, they began walking to the exit that was only a couple of minutes in the distance. Master, the ground is shaking, Xiao Rong said. Don't worry, it's normal. It's just the primordial mammoth moving, and we got close enough to it to experience it. Xiao Rong raised her eyebrows. They actually got closer to the terrifying magical beast. Isn't that incredibly dangerous? What if it accidentally steps on them? Xiao Rong, you can stop suppressing your cultivation base for now. It'll be much safer for us since the magical beasts will think twice before they attack us. Okay, let's go outside. A moment later they left the cave, returning to the surface that was covered in snow. And after walking for a little over 10 minutes, a magical beast appeared before them. This magical beast had the appearance of a leopard but with two immensely long and sharp fangs in its mouth, and its fur was completely white, blending in with the background. If it were not for its elephant-like size, Su Yang wouldn't have noticed it so quickly, as its cultivation base was vastly above his own. It's a divine lord realm magical beast, same level as Keiyu, Su Yang said to Xiao Rong. Use your cultivation base to startle it for a moment. I will take care of it while it's distracted. Xiao Rong nodded, and immediately used her cultivation to pressure the magical beast. When the magical beast felt Zio Rong's ancient sovereign cultivation base bore down upon it, its body froze with fear. Whoosh! The elephant-sized magical beast was sliced in half with ease. Su Yang took a deep breath afterward, as that single attack had consumed over half of his spiritual energy. As much as he wanted Zio Rong to kill every magical beast they encountered, he didn't want her to attract nearby magical beasts with her immense spiritual energy, and his sword will was undetectable unless the magical beasts somehow also knew sword will. Thus, he could only use her to distract the magical beasts while he personally kills them. After killing the magical beast, Su Yang retrieved a pill and consumed it, and his spiritual energy began to restore itself even without needing him to cultivate, as he didn't have the time to sit down and cultivate, not to mention that it was incredibly dangerous to cultivate out in the open in this place. Chapter 908 Sword. Well, 3 days after Su Yang and Zio Rong emerged from the underground cave, they arrived before a frozen canyon. Let's rest here for a bit. I'm exhausted even with the spiritual energy restoring pills, Su Yang said to her. He then walked to a seemingly safe and secluded area in the canyon before taking a seat on the cold floor. Can I sit there? Zio Rong pointed at his LAP and asked. Su Yang nodded. After getting permission, Zio Rong proceeded to take a seat on his LAP. Su Yang then stared at the white sky that was snowing lightly. Zio Rong, what do you think of the divine heavens so far? He suddenly asked her. I think it's fun. There's a lot of new things, and the environment is also very different compared to the previous world, she said. After a moment of silence, Su Yang asked her, do you still not remember anything about why you were inside the spatial device? She shook her head and said, no, I do not remember anything besides waking up in that place. Is that so? After resting for about an hour, they stood up and continued their journey to the frozen azure cave. About 2 hours later, they stopped moving again. In the distance, there could see an individual currently engaged in a fierce battle against a magical beast that looked like a large ball of fur and nothing else. This ball of white fur would bounce on the walls and shoot itself at the cultivator at extreme speeds, and the cultivator would try her best to deflect the attack with her sword. They continued to fight in this manner until the cultivator got used to the magical beast's movements, allowing her to stab her sword directly at it. The ball of white fur released a painful cry before falling to the ground without moving. Who's there? The cultivator turned to point her sword at Su Yang when she suddenly noticed their presence. Once she saw their appearance and realized that they weren't magical beasts, she lowered her sword and proceeded to ignore them. Hey! Su Yang suddenly called out to her. However, she ignored him and continued walking. Seeing this, Su Yang retrieved his sword and swung in her direction, sending an arc of sword while flying towards her. What do you think you're doing? The female cultivator turned around to block the attack, but to her surprise, the sword will flew right past her and directly at the ball of fur on the ground. The seemingly dead magical beast suddenly released another cry when Su Yang's sword will sliced it in half. The cultivator's eyes widened with shock when she saw this. The magical beast had been playing dead. She even used her spiritual sense to make sure its heart was no longer beating. This was her first time seeing something like this. Let's go, Su Yang said to Zio Rong after finishing off the magical beast, and they continued to fly. Wait! The cultivator suddenly called out to them, even flying after them. What is it? Su Yang turned around and asked her. Did you just use sword will? She asked him in a dumbfounded voice. So what if I did? Su Yang said. Who is your master? I also want to learn sword will. Su Yang raised his eyebrows and he said, if you want to learn sword will, you should try swinging your sword 10,000 times a day for a whole year. Are you making fun of me? As if learning sword will is that easy. However, she wasn't willing to give up so easily and followed him. Looks like we have encountered a weirdo. Su Yang sighed in a low voice before he stopped again. He then looked at this female cultivator with more attention. She looked very young, almost like she was around his age, but her cultivation base was much higher than his own, being at the divine saint realm, higher than even Kityu's cultivation by 2 entire realms, and there weren't any serious injuries on her body despite training alone in the center areas of frozen Asgard. She was also extremely pretty with long black hair tied into a single ponytail behind her head. One can imagine this young lady was extremely talented, but also somewhat inexperienced based on the situation before. Don't tell me you came all the way to the frozen Asgard to learn sword will. What's your background? Su Yang asked her, as he was a little interested in her identity. Feng Yan from the Celestial Sword Sect, and yes, I came all the way here to practice my sword, she said in a prideful voice. The Celestial Sword Sect. Although he wasn't familiar with her name, he definitely recognized the Celestial Sword Sect. I wonder how that place is doing now. Su Yang reminisced about his time as a disciple in the Celestial Sword Sect many thousand years ago. I told you my identity, now you tell me yours, she then said to him. Xiao Yang. I am not affiliated with any sect, so I am what you'd consider as a rogue cultivator. What? If you're not affiliated with any sect, how did you learn your sword will? I don't believe that you'd manage to learn it by yourself. Feng Yan doubted him. Believe what you want. Anyway, I am in a hurry, so I won't stay here to entertain you any longer. If you want to learn sword will, go ask somebody else, preferably someone in your sect. There are plenty of people capable of using sword will in the Celestial Sword Sect after all. However, what came out of Feng Yan's mouth made Su Yang's body freeze. What are you talking about? Nobody in the Celestial Sword Sect knows sword will. Maybe in the past when it was a top sect and there were plenty of sword masters available, but there are no longer any sword masters that can use sword will in the sect. They're all gone. Gone? What do you mean by gone? What happened to the Celestial Sword Sect? Su Yang asked her with a frown on his face. Chapter 909, Celestial Sword Sect. You don't know what happened to the Celestial Sword Sect. Feng Yan looked at Su Yang with a surprised expression. Even the ordinary cultivators from the other divine heavens have heard about the incident. Yet this fatty who has the capability to use sword, well, isn't aware of the incident that occurred to one of the top sword sects in the celestial heaven. Feng Yan suddenly showed a smile on her face and she said, If I tell you what happened, you must tell me how you learned your sword will. Su Yang nodded without hesitation. Feng Yan then said, The Celestial Sword Sect lost to the Limitless Sword Sect in a contest where the winner gets to command the loser to do anything, and the Limitless Sword Sect forced all of the swordmasters in the Celestial Sword Sect to leave the sect and forbid future swordmasters from existing in the Celestial Sword Sect again, essentially killing the sect. What? Su Yang was dumbfounded and speechless after hearing about this. What about the sect master? He then asked. The previous sect master had to be replaced by someone who wasn't a swordmaster. The Celestial Sword Sect is still standing even after all of the swordmasters left. How is that possible? Su Yang couldn't understand this part. After all, a sword sect without any swordmasters is just an ordinary sect. That's because even though the swordmasters are forced to leave the sect, they are still allowed to support the sect individually. Furthermore, the sword techniques in the Celestial Sword Sect were left untouched, so while the sect is no longer the same, there are still many disciples there. After pondering for a moment, Su Yang then asked, What happens to the disciples that become swordmasters? Once a disciple of the Celestial Sword Sect becomes an official swordmaster, they must leave the sect. However, not all hope is lost, as these new swordmasters can continue to train under the tutelage of the elders and masters that were forced to leave the sect. They just won't be part of the sect any longer. So the previous sect elders are acting as individual swordmasters, accepting these new swordmasters as disciples after they leave the sect. Heavens, what on earth is happening to the celestial heaven? Everything is a mess, Su Yang mumbled in a low voice. I have told you everything. Now you tell me about your sword will. Who is your master? Feng Yan asked him afterward. After a moment of silence, Su Yang said, Fei Wenxia. Feng Yan's eyes widened with shock upon hearing the name of the previous sect master of the Celestial Sword Sect. You're the old sect master's disciple, Feng Yan exclaimed. I used to be, yes, Su Yang confirmed. You unbelievable, no wonder you know sword will. Before I leave, why did the Limitless Sword Sect and the Celestial Sword Sect decide to fight each other? I know they've always disliked each other because of their differences in sword technique, but there's no reason for them to clash against each other like this. Su Yang suddenly asked her. I'm not so sure about the details myself, but according to rumors, it was because the Limitless Sword Sect had insulted a disciple of the Celestial Sword Sect, and this disciple used to be the pride of the sect. I forgot his name, but I think the person's surname was Su. The Limitless Sword Sect used him to provoke the Celestial Sword Sect, and the Celestial Sword Sect fought them in response. How should he even react to this? Anyway, thank you for the information. I really have to go now, Su Yang said to Feng Yan before flying away with Xiao Rong. Feng Yan didn't chase after him this time, and she returned to training with the sword. Once they were alone, Su Yang said, After Makey's death, I tried to fill the hole in my heart by training with the sword, the weapon she loved the most, and that worked temporarily, as I would forget about my loneliness when I absorbed myself in training. I joined the Celestial Sword Sect during this time, and in the sect, my sword techniques improved by leaps and bounds. If it were not for the Celestial Sword Sect, I probably wouldn't have reached where I currently am with the sword. Fei Wenxia was the sect master of the Celestial Sword Sect when I was still a disciple there, and he held the title of Celestial Heaven Sword Emperor during that time. I cannot believe that someone like him was forced to leave the sect. Su Yang sighed, giving Xiao Rong some of his background and history with the Celestial Sword Sect. As for the Limitless Sword Sect, they would always try to convince me to abandon the Celestial Sword Sect to join them, and when I refused, their jealousy for the Celestial Sword Sect would intensify alongside their hate. After all, I was regarded as the most talented swordmasters during that era, and because of my influence, the Celestial Sword Sect received the title of #1 sword sect in the Celestial Heaven, something the Limitless Sword Sect coveted greatly. I stopped paying attention to the Celestial Sword Sect and the world of swordmasters after I left the sect and began my journey as a dual cultivator, but I can never forget my debt to them. When I get the chance, I will see if there's anything I can do to help the Celestial Sword Sect return to their former glory. During the rest of their journey in the canyon, Su Yang would talk about his time as a disciple in the Celestial Sword Sect, and Xiao Rong would listen with great interest. After all, Su Yang normally doesn't talk about his past, and when he does, he wouldn't say more than just a few words. Chapter 910, Unknown Terror. At the end of the canyon was a steep mountain pass, with a narrow path that only had enough room for one person to walk on at a time, so walking side by side was impossible. One would think about flying here instead of walking this narrow path, but there's a powerful entity that might rival the primordial mammoth living down there, and if you fly over it, there's a good chance that it'll try to consume you, Su Yang said as he pointed at the bottom of the mountain that was so far down that they couldn't see the end. I have seen it happen with my very own eyes. It wasn't a pretty sight, he added. Sometime later, they began walking on this narrow path. There are two things we have to worry about when walking on this path. 1. A powerful gust of wind that will come at random times, and 2. The magical beasts that sometimes fly around this area. Though most of the time, The magical beasts that fly in this area are eaten by the unknown terror at the bottom of this mountain, so we really only need to pay attention to the wind that could blow us off the road. The good thing is that once we reach the end, there will only be one more place we must pass before we reach the frozen azure cave. Xiao Rong nodded. An hour later, Su Yang suddenly stopped walking and said, "Cover yourself with spiritual energy. The wind is coming." The next moment, a powerful gust of wind that was as powerful as a hurricane started blowing their direction, threatening to knock them off the mountain pass. The wind was so strong that one could see large chunks of ice the size of large boulders being carried by the wind and flying past them before disappearing into the distance. The wind lasted for 10 minutes without any breaks until it suddenly stopped, disappearing as quickly as it appeared. "Let's go," Su Yang said a moment later once he was certain that the wind would not be returning anytime soon. However, about half an hour later, the wind returned again, forcing them to stop. On the second day, shortly after experiencing their third wind for that day, Su Yang suddenly stopped. Xiao Rong subconsciously covered herself in spiritual energy when Su Yang stopped walking, but he said a second later, "This time it's a magical beast. Don't move and suppress your presence." Xiao Rong immediately retracted her spiritual energy and suppressed her presence until even Su Yang could not sense her despite standing a few inches in front of her. As expected of a phantom cat, their ability to hide their presence is too heaven-defying. Su Yang sighed inwardly, admiring her heaven-sent talent. A few moments later, a massive bird-like creature the size of multiple large restaurants could be seen flying in their direction in the distance. And surprisingly, this magical beast emitted an ancient realm aura. However, before this flying magical beast could even get near them, something extremely long and flexible suddenly emerged from the bottom of the mountain like a spear, piercing straight through the flying magical beast's body. Once this spear-like thing pierced the magical beast's body, it wrapped itself around the magical beast before dragging it into the depths of the mountain pass, disappearing almost instantly. Xiao Rong swallowed nervously when she witnessed the scene. How can an ancient realm magical beast like her die so easily? It didn't even have a chance to fight back whatever that thing was. What was that thing just now? She couldn't help but ask him afterward. That was the tongue of the entity that lives at the bottom, he said. Nobody really knows what lies at the bottom. Some people have gone down to investigate, but they never returned. Do you understand why we cannot fly here now? Xiao Rong quickly nodded her head. All right, let's continue moving. It will take us another 2 days before we can reach the end at this rate. Su Yang and Xiao Rong encountered another magical beast flying through the area a few hours later, and it had an even more powerful aura compared to the last one, but it also suffered the same fate as the previous magical beast. 2 days later, they finally reached the end of the mountain pass without any troubles, but because they had to constantly take breaks to defend against the wind, it felt much longer than 2 days for them. After the mountain pass was a vast mountain valley that only went one way. Su Yang lifted his arm and pointed at the horizon and said, "At the end of this mountain valley is the frozen azure cave. However, crossing this mountain valley will be extremely dangerous, as there are no hidden passages that we can use to hide. Thus, we can only traverse in the open and try our best to avoid as many magical beasts as we can. And just like the mountain pass, we cannot fly in this place since we will be in plain sight, not to mention the many aerial magical beasts in this area. We still have about 2 weeks left until the meeting, but this place is the longest and largest area in the frozen Asgard because this is the very center, so it might require the entire 2 weeks to traverse this place." Su Yang said. Then he retrieved the black pouch he'd acquired from his old home before tying it right beside his waist, allowing for quick and convenient access just in case anything happens. "Are you ready?" Su Yang asked Xiao Rong. She nodded. Then let's go. The two of them then jumped off the edge of the mountain pass and straight into the mountain valley, before slowly making their way towards the frozen azure cave at the end of this valley. The moment they landed on the ground, they noticed thick red mist that resembled clouds covering the ground that appeared to be coming from the direction of their destination. Su Yang frowned when he saw this red mist that flowed like a river, and he mumbled, "What is this red mist? This isn't natural. I have never seen anything like this in the frozen Asgard before, and I have been to this place multiple times." Chapter 911, Devil Blood Mist. When he saw this red mist, Su Yang took a quick sniff of it. This is. Su Yang's eyes widened with shock. Upon realizing what it was, he immediately retrieved some ingredients from his storage ring before concocting a couple of pills right on the spot. Xiao Rong watched with interest. A minute later, Su Yang handed half of the pills to Xiao Rong and said to her, "Quickly, eat it." He then followed his own advice and swallowed the pills. After she consumed the pills, Xiao Rong asked him, "Master, what is happening? What is this red mist?" "This red mist is called Devil Blood Mist. It's a poisonous gas that's released by a certain magical beast known as the red-faced lizard. However, that shouldn't be possible, as red-faced lizards cannot handle the cold and are usually only found in the hotter parts of the world. And what I just had you consume were poison resistance pills. Fortunately for us, the Devil Blood Mist isn't very powerful if we deal with it quickly, and can be repelled by even ordinary poisonous pills. After all, it's only used by the red-faced lizard to weaken its prey, that is usually other magical beasts, but it covers a large area." Su Yang then looked at the depths of the mountain valley with a frown. Why is there a red-faced lizard in the frozen Asgard, the coldest area in the celestial heaven? Did it consume a treasure in this place and somehow mutate? He wondered inwardly. However, if that was the case, how did the red-faced lizard get here in the first place? I doubt it came here naturally. Su Yang suspected that someone had placed a red-faced lizard in this area for whatever reason, as that was the most logical reason he could think of. As for the reason behind such actions, he cannot even begin to imagine. Anyways, even if there's a red-faced lizard in here, it won't stop us from reaching the frozen azure cave. We just need to be extra careful, as red-faced lizards are usually at the peak of the ancient realm. Peak of the ancient realm, Xiao Rong repeated in a low voice. If they encounter this red-faced lizard, the chances of her being able to protect Su Yang were practically zero. Of course, Su Yang was well aware of this, but he never expected Xiao Rong to protect him, as he has his own methods to deal with the red-faced lizard if they truly encounter it. "Let me concoct a few more pills. We'll need to consume one every hour to protect ourselves from the poison," Su Yang said, before spending a few minutes concocting over 100 pills. Once he was done, he handed half of them to Xiao Rong and said, "Now let's conceal our presence again." They then started walking into the wilderness. However, they were walking at an extremely slow pace, as Su Yang wanted to make sure there were no magical beasts around them before he continued further. Furthermore, even if he spots a magical beast, there was a good chance that they'd spot him as well. About an hour later, they stopped walking when Su Yang sensed a powerful presence a few miles in the distance. "It feels like the divine emperor realm," Su Yang mumbled in a low voice. Since he was only at the sovereign spirit realm, he could only guess the magical beast's prowess that was far above his own, making it impossible for him to see their full strength. However, since he has plenty of experience, he could guess their cultivation bases just by their aura. Of course, if a magical beast knows how to conceal its presence or suppress its cultivation base, then it would be pretty disastrous for them. As for Xiao Rong, who was at the ancient sovereign realm, she also couldn't tell their cultivation bases, as she has zero experience when it comes to the power scale in the divine heavens. This meant that despite having a much higher cultivation base than Su Yang, she wouldn't be any more useful when it comes to assessing others' prowess. Once he spotted the magical beast, Su Yang stopped moving until he could no longer sense the presence, and then he would alter their direction a little bit to completely avoid the magical beast. They continued to move like this for the entire day, and they managed to avoid over a dozen magical beasts like this. Fortunately, there are fewer magical beasts now than before. This is probably due to the blood devil mist, as the only way for the magical beasts to avoid it is to leave the area. Despite the poison being incredibly weak for a magical beast as powerful as the red-faced lizard, the blood devil mist can ignore one's spiritual energy just like the blizzard surrounding the frozen Asgard, making it impossible to defend against it. Xiao Rong subconsciously stopped her movement when Su Yang stopped. After following him for the last 2 months, she had grown used to moving and stopping very frequently. Meanwhile, Su Yang used a special surveillance technique to spy on the magical beast ahead, purposefully avoiding the usage of spiritual sense, as the magical beasts would easily notice him looking at them with spiritual sense due to his weak cultivation base. After a moment of silence, Su Yang suddenly turned around and said in a somewhat panicked voice, "Quickly, follow me." He then began running in the opposite direction. Xiao Rong was surprised at first since this was their first time needing to run backward. After running for about an hour, Su Yang finally stopped and sighed. "That was close. That magical beast almost noticed us." "Almost, so it didn't notice us." Xiao Rong raised her eyebrows. Why did they run if it didn't notice them? Wouldn't their movements attract it instead? Su Yang shook his head and said, "You don't understand. The magical beast from before was different from the rest. It has extremely sharp senses, and it even has an ability that's similar to spiritual sense, and it used it to look at its surroundings. If we didn't leave just now, it would have spotted us. Anyways, we can no longer go that direction. Follow me." They continued moving shortly later. Chapter 912. She will definitely come. Another week has passed since Su Yang and Xiao Rong began traversing the mountain valley, giving them one more week to reach the frozen azure cave. However, they were not even close to reaching their destination, only managing to traverse a fourth of it. "Looks like we're really going to be late if we continue at this pace," Su Yang sighed. As much as he wanted to just take out his flying treasure and speed through the mountain valley, he didn't have a death wish. After pondering for a moment, Su Yang said, "All right, Xiao Rong, we're going to speed up. It may be risky, but if we don't reach the frozen azure cave and Zi leaves, our entire journey here would become pointless." Xiao Rong then asked him, "Master, why are you so certain that she will be at the frozen azure cave? What if this person is not there?" Su Yang smiled and said, "That's not possible. If she heard the message I told Mu Yuechen, she will definitely come. After all, that's the same words I told her when we paired up to acquire the azure lotus thousands of years ago. As for Mu Yuechen, I know her well enough. If she says that she will do something, she will do it, so I don't have to worry about her not conveying the message to Z. Of course, Mu Yuechen could delay telling her the message, but I hope that isn't the case. In any case, I have no doubt that she will be there once we arrive," Su Yang said. Xiao Rong nodded. "Then make sure you follow along. I am going to speed up a lot now." After taking a deep breath, Su Yang began using the movement technique 9 astral steps, moving many miles with a single step. Of course, since he sped up his movement, he also had to increase his alert even more. A few minutes later, the instant Su Yang notices a presence, he would instantly change directions and go another route without even taking the time to see what kind of magical beast it was, if it was even a magical beast in the first place. However, with that being said, There are eccentric and unfathomable people out there who would come to the center of the frozen Asgard to train and look for treasures, so there may be a couple of people in the mountain valley right now. A few hours later, Su Yang stopped to rest. Although he could move without stopping for many days if he was just using the 9 astral steps, his surveillance technique was very taxing on his mind and spiritual energy, so he could only move continuously for a single day like this. As for why he stopped only after just a few hours despite having enough energy for the whole day, it was simply because he didn't want to exhaust all of his spiritual energy, just in case he needed it to deal with any unexpected encounters. After an hour of resting, they started moving again. The next day, after an entire week of no incidents, Su Yang and Xiao Rong finally encountered their first magical beast after failing to notice it because it had suppressed its presence. Divine Sword. The moment Su Yang realized that they had been noticed by a magical beast, he immediately used his strongest sword technique, Divine Sword. However, unlike when he fought against Patriarch Gold, the Divine Sword didn't have any extravagant appearances and remained the size of a normal sword, as he didn't want to attract the nearby magical beasts while fighting this one. The white bear released a deafening roar when it was struck by the Divine Sword that constantly drained its strength. It then turned to look at Su Yang before running at him, acting as though there wasn't a sword in its body. "Xiao Rong," Su Yang called out to her. Xiao Rong, who had been standing behind him, used her spiritual energy to suppress the magical beast even further by attacking it mentally. Su Yang then used 9 astral steps to approach the white bear without getting too close to it. Once he was behind the magical beast, he pointed his finger at the white bear before sending out a single strand of sword that pierced the white bear's head from behind, instantly killing it. "Let's get out of here before other magical beasts arrive." After killing the magical beast, Su Yang immediately used 9 astral steps to leave the scene without even bothering to check the corpse, and Xiao Rong followed him. After another hour of running without rest, Su Yang finally stopped and began panting heavily. It had taken him nearly all of his spiritual energy just to take care of the magical beast that appeared to be around the divine saint realm. If that single strike didn't kill the magical beast, they would have been in trouble. "Keep watch for me, Xiao Rong. I am going to recover my spiritual energy," he said to her before taking a seat and absorbing the spiritual energy around them as quickly as possible. Half an hour later, before Su Yang could recover his spiritual energy fully, Xiao Rong called out to him, "Master." Su Yang's eyes immediately snapped open. Once he determined the location of the presence in half a second, he wasted no time using 9 astral steps, disappearing from his location in less than a second. Chapter 913 Frozen Azure Cave, Divine Sword. Su Yang tossed the small sword, emitting an otherworldly aura at the magical beast ahead, stabbing it directly between its eyes. The magical beast released a painful cry that was loud enough to shake the trees and ground. "Xiao Rong," Su Yang called out to her. Xiao Rong then used her spiritual energy to strike the magical beast's mind, halting its movement for a split second. During that split second, Su Yang used the majority of his spiritual energy to create a powerful sword, that could kill the magical beast in a single strike. After killing the magical beast, they immediately ran away from the area that would soon become a battlefield for other magical beasts fighting over the corpse. They would repeat this process every time they encountered a magical beast, and although it was extremely exhausting for Su Yang, he continued to endure it, as they were so close to reaching the frozen Azure Cave. Furthermore, whenever he thought about meeting Luo Zi again, he would gain some energy back and continue pushing further. Of course, there were encounters with magical beasts that were even stronger than Xiao Rong. When this happened, They could only run away and pray to the heavens that they don't get caught by the magical beast. Fortunately for them, the magical beasts they could only run away from were powerful but slow entities, slow enough for Su Yang and Xiao Rong to escape unscathed. Their movement techniques were major contributors as well, as Su Yang's 9 astral steps was one of the best movement techniques in the 4 divine heavens, while Xiao Rong was naturally quick on her feet. Their journey continued for a few more days until it was the time of the meeting. However, they were still not at the frozen azure cave. They were close, but they weren't there just yet, and it'd take them another 2 days to reach the area if they continued to move at their current pace. Master, Xiao Rong looked at him, who was sitting on the ground and cultivating. I know we're late, but we're not too far away, and I really need to recover some of my spiritual energy. If we continue at my current state, I won't have enough spiritual energy to kill the next magical beast if we run into one. We may be late, but Z won't immediately leave because we're late. She's a patient woman. That's why I picked her out of everyone available at the sect, as I was afraid that we wouldn't make it in time. Su Yang said. Xiao Rong nodded. A few hours later, once Su Yang recovered the majority of his spiritual energy, they continued to move again. As they got closer to the frozen azure cave, Su Yang noticed that the devil blood mist was getting stronger and thicker. It was near transparent at first, but the mist is now so incredibly thick that he could no longer see the ground. Seeing this, Su Yang said, Xiao Rong, let's slow down. As much as he wanted to continue moving at the same pace, he truly didn't want to encounter the red-faced lizard. The red-faced lizard is not only powerful, but it has a special ability that can spit out poisonous saliva that travels as fast as a flying treasure and nearly impossible to dodge. And unlike the mist it releases, its saliva is incredibly poisonous and could instantly kill us if it even touches it. The only way to defend against such an ability is to cover yourself in spiritual energy that it cannot penetrate. However, neither of us are powerful enough to block it with our spiritual energy, so we can only avoid it. Xiao Rong nodded, and they slowed down. Su Yang lifted his arm and pointed at the peak of the mountain that was at the end of the mountain valley. The frozen azure cave is at the peak of this mountain, Su Yang said. However, there was one problem. The mountain itself was incredibly tall and reached the heavens, and there didn't seem to be any paths that they could walk to go to the top, leaving them with only one option. In order to get up there, we'll need to fly, but that might attract the aerial magical beasts around us. I can even sense 3 of them flying around us as I speak. They'll definitely notice us and attack us before we can reach the entrance if we just fly up there. Even if we manage to get up there, the frozen azure cave is large enough to host magical beasts inside, but we probably don't have to worry about that, since Z should have taken care of them if she's inside. Actually, now that I think about it, it should be fine even if we attract the magical beasts. As long as we reach the frozen azure cave, Z will take care of them for us. Su Yang then came to this realization. Su Yang then took a deep breath and said, Are you ready for this, Xiao Rong? She nodded. Su Yang retrieved the marble that could teleport them if something goes wrong and held it in his grasp so that they could teleport to safety in an instant. Oh Z, I really hope you're in there. Su Yang sighed inwardly as he started flying toward the peak of the mountain. Of course, the magical beasts flying in the sky noticed Su Yang and Xiao Rong flying in the sky. The instant they noticed the 2 of them, they began flying in their direction. Although the magical beasts were hundreds of miles away, they closed the distance within minutes. Su Yang knew that they wouldn't make it to the frozen azure cave before the magical beasts reached them, and they were too powerful for him or Xiao Rong to handle. So he used his other hand that wasn't holding the marble and reached for the black pouch hanging by his waist. retrieving a yellow talisman a moment later. Chapter 914. Inside the frozen azure cave, the yellow talisman emitted a profound and ancient aura when it appeared in the world, causing the magical beasts that were flying at them to slow down greatly, as their instincts warned them to not get close. In fact, two of the three magical beasts turned around and flew away a moment later. However, one of them decided to remain and continue to chase down Su Yang and Xiao Rong, its eyes flickering with killing intent that could suffocate even a divine spirit realm cultivator. "So you decide to choose death, huh? Then die for me." Su Yang activated the talisman by pouring his spiritual energy into the talisman when he realized that the last magical beast wasn't going to leave them alone. The talisman immediately began emitting a gentle golden glow. "Sword talisman." Su Yang tossed the talisman at the incoming magical beast. Whoosh! Although the magical beast couldn't sense the sword will, it could sense that something incredibly powerful and dangerous was heading its way, so it immediately turned around and began running away. However, the sword will caught up to the magical beast almost instantly, tearing its massive body to shreds just as fast. Xiao Rong was speechless when she saw this, and she asked him, "Master, what was that just now? I could sense a familiar feeling from that talisman just now." "Because the sword will released by the sword talisman is actually my own sword will. Well, at least sword will from my previous self," he explained to her why she was having that feeling. "When I was still an active swordmaster, I'd create these talismans using my sword will for emergencies and would sometimes even sell them when I needed money. They're incredibly powerful and can kill even an ancient realm cultivator. However, they were also incredibly taxing to create, and they could only be used once, so I didn't make too many of them. Let's speed up. Hopefully, there won't be any more magical beasts since I only have a few more of these talismans." An hour later, they finally arrived at the peak of the mountain, where a massive cave entrance could be seen. "We've finally made it. The frozen azure cave." Su Yang released a huge sigh of relief upon seeing the entrance. "Let's go inside," Su Yang then said, feeling a little impatient after finally reaching this point. After walking for a few miles on a dim path that was somewhat illuminated by the glowing walls that would grow brighter as they went deeper, they have finally arrived at the end of the frozen azure cave, a spacious and fully illuminated area with a pond in the middle. Su Yang walked to the glowing pond and looked around the place, but Luo Zi was nowhere to be seen. "She's not here." Su Yang raised his eyebrows. Perhaps she was also running a little late like him. Or maybe she left already. Su Yang was more willing to believe that Luo Zi was running late instead of the latter reasoning. "Xiao Rong, let's..." Before Su Yang could even finish his sentence, his body froze when a dreadful aura suddenly filled the place. "This presence? Impossible. What's that thing doing here?" Su Yang turned to look at the other side of the room, where a large black lizard with black scales and a red symbol that resembled a face on its back was staring at them. "Master, is that?" Xiao Rong's body trembled with fear when she saw the menacing entity at the back of the room. "Don't move. That is the red-faced lizard. Any sudden movements and it will attack," he said to her using spiritual sense. "Fuck, what is this beast doing here? How did it get inside the frozen azure cave? Don't tell me it climbed all the way up here." Su Yang cursed inwardly, as he initially believed that the red-faced lizard was inside the mountain valley. "There's no way we can defeat that thing even with my sword talisman. If Z was here, that red-faced lizard wouldn't be here. What should I do? Should I just give up on meeting her now and run away with Xiao Rong using the teleport treasure?" Su Yang didn't want to give up after reaching the end, but there was truly no good solution to this mess besides running away with Xiao Rong. Although he had plenty of treasures inside his black pouch that could deal with the red-faced lizard, he didn't dare to reach for it, as the red-faced lizard would kill him before he could even take any of his treasures out, much less use them. Therefore, he could only resort to using the marble that was already in his grasp. All he needed to do was crush the marble and teleport away. Su Yang tightened his jaw in anger. As much as he wanted to ponder some more, he didn't dare to risk it. Even worse, he noticed some minor movements by the red-faced lizard mouth. It was clearly preparing to attack them with its unavoidable poison spit. Su Yang gave up when he saw this. Damn it! How dare you interrupt my long-awaited reunion with Ziyi? I will definitely return to this place and skin you alive once I am strong enough. However, just as Su Yang began tightening his fists, and the red-faced lizard opened its mouth, a tyrannical pressure came out of nowhere, instantly flattening the red-faced lizard into meat paste. Su Yang's movement froze when he felt this pressure, and his body subconsciously turned around to look at the only entrance that was also an exit for the frozen azure cave. Ziyi. Su Yang mumbled in a low voice when he saw a breathtakingly beautiful goddess standing by the entrance with a calm look on her ethereal face, and she was wearing a black uniform that he didn't recognize. Thank you for listening to the story on KevinAudio.com Chapter 915 Reunion After 2,000 Years. Ziyi. Su Yang felt an urge to cry after seeing Luo Ziyi's beautiful face for the first time in years. Even though it has been technically 2,000 years, Su Yang has only experienced a small fraction of that, as he'd reincarnated only 20 years ago. Of course, while it has only been a few years for Su Yang, it has been over 2,000 since Luo Ziyi has seen him. After killing the red-faced lizard with almost no effort at all, Luo Yizi slowly approached them in small steps, and she spoke in a calm voice. I will see you at the frozen azure cave in 3 months when the azure lotus blooms. Tell me, why did you tell Mu Yuchen to convey this message to me? And how did you know about it? That was what my late husband told me when I told him that I needed the azure lotus. Luo Ziyi stopped walking a few steps before him. You also knew an awful lot about Mu Yuchen while she knew nothing about you. Tell me, who are you? Su Yang didn't immediately answer her, and he looked around the frozen azure cave instead, looking like he was searching for something. Seeing this, Luo Ziyi snapped her fingers, instantly creating a powerful formation that covered the entire mountain. I have concealed this entire place. Nobody will be able to hear us unless I allow them, not even heaven itself. Su Yang then smiled and said, What do you think? Who do you think I am? Luo Ziyi narrowed her eyes, and a powerful pressure suddenly enveloped Su Yang, threatening to flatten him just like she did to the red-faced lizard. Although it didn't injure him, Luo Ziyi could do so with a single thought. Su Yang started laughing at her reaction, and then he said, You haven't changed at all, Ziyi. Go ahead, kill me if you dare. Luo Ziyi's body visibly trembled after hearing his words. The pressure disappeared the next moment, and she spoke in a shaky voice, her calmness from a moment ago nowhere to be seen. Is it really you? Su Yang then retrieved a white pill and consumed it. A few seconds later, his round figure began slimming down, and his height even grew taller. In just a few seconds, the fatty before Luo Ziyi had completely disappeared, turning into an incredibly handsome young man with unfathomable charm. I know I look a little bit younger than what you're used to, but yes, I am indeed Su. Before he could even finish his sentence, Luo Ziyi stepped forward with her arms spread wide open, tossing herself at him. Su Yang, you're really alive. She embraced him tightly with the corner of her eyes overflowing with tears. Su Yang also embraced her. Feeling the nostalgic warmth of her body, he finally felt like he was home. Even though he has been in the divine heavens for a couple of months by now, it didn't feel like he'd gone home, at least not until he reunites with his family. After spending the next hour simply hugging each other in silence, Su Yang finally said, All right, Ziyi. As much as I want to continue this, we have a lot to talk about. Indeed, we do. I have so many questions for you. What a coincidence, he said with a smile. He then continued, go ahead, ask me. I will answer your questions first. Luozi wiped her eyes and nodded. She then asked him, how are you alive? We all saw your corpse when the heavenly emperor handed you back to us. And where have you been for the past couple of thousand years? Su Yang then retrieved a mattress from his storage ring before placing it on the ground. Take a seat. This is going to take a while, he said. Seeing him take out a mattress, Luozi smiled and said, you're definitely Su Yang, no doubt about it. Once they were both seated, Su Yang turned to look at Xiao Rong and patted the space beside him. You can sit here as well. Xiao Rong nodded and sat beside him in an obedient manner. Although she tried her best to avoid looking at Luozi, Xiao Rong would glance at Luozi every once in a while, as she was attracted by the unfathomable aura surrounding Luozi's graceful figure. Sometime later, Su Yang began explaining to Luozi what had occurred when he was still trapped inside the eternal retribution cliff, and how he met this mysterious old man. He then talked about how he got reincarnated to another world that was not part of the four divine heavens. So after you met this old man, you suddenly woke up in the body of another person, but that person turned out to be your reincarnation. Just who is this old man that can force someone to reincarnate? Even the heavenly emperor doesn't have such capability, I think. Luozi wondered out loud. Yes, and I have been trying to get back here since I woke up in that world. I managed to return to the four divine heavens much quicker than I'd expected, since I wasn't expecting to return for at least a few more decades, if not a few hundred years. Anyways, now let me tell you about my experience there. Su Yang proceeded to lay on the mattress with Luozi lying beside him, and they both stared at the cave ceiling that was glistening like the starry sky, almost like they were stargazing. Once they were comfortable, Su Yang began recalling his entire experience in that new world from the moment he woke up in his new body, until the moment he stepped through the mirror and returned to the four divine heavens. Luozi didn't utter a single word until Su Yang was finished with his story. Her hand gently clasped onto Su Yang's hands this entire time. Chapter 916, reactivating Luozi's family seal. And that's how I returned to the four divine heavens. Su Yang ended his story after talking for 4 hours straight. Well, what do you think? Su Yang asked her afterward. I am speechless, Luozi said in a dazed voice. Luozi found many shocking things in Su Yang's experience, but the most shocking detail of all was that he'd actually managed to find over a dozen women to join the family in just 4 short years, when he'd normally only come back home every few hundred years with a single new addition. Of course, Su Yang had skipped some minor details in his story, such as impregnating a few of these women, as he wanted to surprise her with them later. Sister Linksy, so she knew that you were alive this entire time but didn't say a single word to us despite returning to her original body for so long. I don't even know if I should be mad that she kept it to herself, or happy that I got to learn about it for myself, making our reunion that much more emotional and better. Su Yang smiled and said she was never the type to communicate with everyone else. What are your plans now that you have returned, Su Yang? She then asked him. I heard from Mu Yuechen that everyone has scattered after my death. I plan on reuniting everyone. However, in order to do that, I must recover my original strength. If I try to do anything with my current cultivation base, I will die before I can do anything. I see. With that being said, do you know where the others are? I only know about your sect and everyone inside. Mu Yuechen told me that most of them had returned to their own homes, but that's the extent of my knowledge. I know the location of some, but I do not know where everyone is, she said. Although we would send letters to each other at first, we eventually stopped and continued on with our life. Is that so? Looks like it will take a while to reunite with everyone, Su Yang sighed. If you want, you can always reveal to the world that you're still alive. Once word spreads, they will eventually come back on their own, said Luozi. As much as I want to let the world know that I am back, I am still far too weak, and there are plenty of people who would do everything in their power to get rid of me once and for all. Furthermore, even if I can seek protection from you ladies, chances are my enemies will find me first before everyone else. Also, as far as I can tell, you ladies are living in peace right now even without me. I don't want to ruin this peaceful time by revealing my presence. So do you intend on keeping the others in the dark? Luozi asked him. I don't know if I will be able to keep this to myself, especially when I am in front of the other sisters. We may be living a peaceful life right now, but we're all silently grieving inside we have been ever since your death. Of course, many of us believe that you are still alive since our family seal is still on our body. The other sisters are definitely waiting for you to come back. Speaking of the family seal, can I see it? Su Yang suddenly asked her. Luozi nodded and proceeded to loosen her clothes, revealing her perfect body alongside the family seal that was located on the right side of her waist. However, the family seal was deactivated, lacking the golden color. Can you try activating it again? Luozi asked him a moment later. He nodded and smeared some of his blood onto the family seal. Luozi could immediately feel her body heating up. A moment later, the deactivated family seal began turning golden. Alas, after 2,000 years, the family seal has finally activated again. Luozi looked at the golden symbol with a loving gaze. Once the family seal on Luozi activated, Su Yang could feel his connection with her return. Su Yang. Hearing Luozi's sweet voice, he turned to look at her. The moment he turned his head, Luozi grabbed his head before pulling it toward her face. MMM. Luozi began kissing him passionately. Su Yang closed his eyes and fully indulged himself in it. The two of them continued to kiss each other passionately for almost an entire hour straight. Once they stopped, Luozi took a moment to breathe before loosening her clothes fully, and she stared at him with a passionate gaze, her intentions clear. Su Yang, I want to feel your love even more. Su Yang didn't hesitate and immediately removed his clothes, ignoring the cold temperature there. Even though you reincarnated, your body appears to be the same, Luozi chuckled when she saw the massive dragon between his legs. But will it feel the same? Let's find out. Su Yang did not immediately insert his rod into her cave and took a moment to caress her beautiful pink slit with his rod instead. Once it was soaking wet, Su Yang inserted his rod into Luozi's tight and warm immortal cave that hasn't been touched for at least 2,000 years. The moment his rod reached the end of her cave, Su Yang could feel her inner walls tightening around his rod. This sensation provided an indescribable feeling of pleasure that Su Yang hasn't experienced ever since he reincarnated. It was a heavenly feeling that made him lose his mind for a brief moment. Tilde. Luozi moaned in a soft voice. This is it, this is the feeling I have been longing for. Chapter 917. Does this make me the first? Tilde. Tilde. The frozen azure cave echoed with Luozi's blissful voice and the sound of Su Yang's rod pounding her meat. Is it just me, or did you get even better? Luozi asked him while he continued drilling her body. Really, I don't know, Su Yang said with a smile. Luozi then held out her arms in front of her and said, Hold me, Su Yang. He nodded and released her waist before grabbing her hand. Once their fingers were locked, Su Yang moved his hips even faster. Tilde. Luozi's immortal cave gushed with yin qi, but Su Yang didn't dare to absorb these yin qi as his cultivation base was far too lacking. Therefore, he could only treat this as casual SCX instead of dual cultivation. The two of them continued to cultivate with each other for an entire week, while Xiao Rong watched them with a somewhat envious gaze. Su Yang has only ever used his sword to pierce her rear end, and she wondered how it would feel in the front. This curious and envious feeling only got stronger as she watched Luozi display extreme bliss and satisfaction. After a week of straight sex and without releasing his Yang Qi once, Su Yang asked her, "Ziyi, I know you have asked me before. To impregnate, do you still want my children? If so, I will impregnate you right now." Luozi stopped moaning to stare at him with a shocked expression on her face. What did you just say? I don't think I heard you properly, Luozi said, doubting her ears. I said, do you still want my children? You asked me before, remember? Oh, of course I remember, she nodded. And she continued, I also remember how you'd adamantly refuse my request as well as the others. Su Yang smiled and said, well, I have changed. I am willing to impregnate you, all of you now. Really, you're not messing with me? Yes, he nodded to confirm. Do you want to bear my child Ziyi? Su Yang asked her again. I do, she responded immediately this time. Then here it comes. Su Yang then released his Yang Qi, and an entire week's worth of Yang Qi gushed into Luo Zi's immortal cave. The Yang Qi quickly overflowed her cave. Su Yang unplugged his rod from her body a moment later. Let me clean it for you. Luo Zi then licked his rod clean with her mouth. Despite cultivating with Su Yang for an entire week straight, Luo Zi clearly had plenty of energy left. As much as she wanted to continue cultivating with him, they will have to continue this another day when their environment is more suitable for dual cultivation. Furthermore, there were still a lot of things they needed to talk about. Su Yang, does this make me the first person to bear your child? Luo Zi asked him sometime after they wore their clothes again. Well, Su Yang showed her a smile with a deep meaning behind it. What? Don't tell me I'm not. Then who's the first one? How come I haven't heard about it? Probably because it happened when I was in another world, he said. Luo Zi's eyes widened with shock and her jaw dropped, leaving her mouth wide open. Why you impregnate one of the new sisters? Su Yang nodded and said, it's not just one either. I have 5 children right now with 4 different women. Heavens! Luo Zi was left speechless by this revelation. Do you want to meet them? It should be safe now with the concealment formation around us. Su Yang then said to her. Yes, she quickly responded. All right. Su Yang then retrieved the spatial device and opened the Immortal's treasure. Sometime later, he went inside with Luo Zi and Xiao Rong. Upon entering the Immortal's treasury, Su Yang teleported them directly to the 2nd floor where the others were living. Of course, Su Yang had notified them before they entered the spatial device, so everybody living inside the Immortal's treasury was already gathered and waiting for their arrival. Su Yang. The ladies there immediately smiled when they saw Su Yang's handsome face again. Although they hear his voice pretty often, this was their first time seeing him in person since they arrived at the 4 divine heavens 3 months ago. Wow, what a beautiful lady! Sun Jingjing subconsciously mumbled when she saw Luo Zi. While they knew Su Yang wanted to introduce them to someone, they didn't know who exactly, but when they saw Luo Zi, they immediately knew her relationship with Su Yang, especially when they felt the family seals on their body reacting to her. It's been a while, ladies. Let me introduce you to Luo Zi. If you can't tell by now, she's a member of the Su family from the 4 divine heavens. Su Yang said to them. Hello. Luo Zi said to them with a calm expression on her face, yet she was greatly shocked inwardly when she saw 4 beautiful women carrying babies in their arms. Are they all Su Yang's children? Luo Zi felt an indescribable feeling in her heart when she saw these babies. Hi, my name is Sun Jingjing, and I used to be a fellow disciple of Su Yang. Sun Jingjing was the first to introduce herself. Once Sun Jingjing finished her introduction, the next person went, and they would continue this until everyone there had introduced themselves. However, Luo Zi was barely paying attention to their introductions, as she was completely focused on the babies. When Zai Xingfang noticed Luo Zi staring at the babies, she spoke with a smile on her face. "Senior sister, would you like to carry one of them?" Eh? Luo Zi snapped out of her daze and looked at her face for the first time. "I noticed you were staring at them, so I thought you might have wanted to take a closer look. If I'm wrong, I apologize. No, you're right. I'd like to hold them for a moment if you don't mind." Luo Zi quickly interrupted with a somewhat bashful look on her face. The smile on Su Yang's face grew wider when he saw this, and he laughed inwardly at Luo Zi's unusual reaction to the baby's chapter 918, Su Yang's plans. After Zai Xingfeng handed Su Tianying over to Luo Zi. Luo Zi proceeded to carry the baby in her arms with an inexplicable feeling in her heart. Su Tianying, Su Yang's son, stared at Luo Zi in silence as she carried him. Sometime later, Su Yang said, "Zi, I need you to do me a favor." "What is it?" "Can you take care of them while I am away?" Luo Zi turned to look at him and said, "What do you mean?" "I want you to let them stay at your sect for now. I will be traversing the 4 divine heavens to improve my cultivation, and it would be inappropriate for me to carry them around with me everywhere, especially with my plans. If I die, I don't want them to die with me." Everybody there looked at him in silence. "Don't say such obnoxious things. I won't forgive you if you die again." Luo Zi said with a frown on her face. "I know, but I will be able to travel with reassurance knowing that they're in your care." After a moment of silence, Luo Zi turned to look at the ladies and asked them, "Are you girls okay with his decision?" The ladies exchanged glances with each other. Lion Li then said, "Just make sure to visit us once in a while, okay?" "That's right, at least once a year," Su Yin said. Su Yang showed a bitter smile on his face, and he said, "Unfortunately, I may not be able to visit any of you for at least a few years." "What? Why not?" Su Liking quickly asked. "Because the place you ladies will be going to is called the Sacred Lands. It's a special place in the celestial heaven where men are barred from entering unless they receive permission from the Sacred Empress. Although I have permission to enter the Sacred Land, that permission is for Su Yang, and I cannot reveal my identity for now, as that would only bring trouble for everyone." The ladies were clearly not happy to learn that they'll have to separate from him and most likely not see him again for a few years, but they understood that Su Yang had many important things to do, and they were warned even before they arrived at the 4 divine heavens that things will change. "Stay safe, Su Yang," they said to him afterward. Su Yang nodded and said, "Of course, I won't die so easily." And he continued while looking at Wang Shuren and Bai Lihua, "I will try my best to meet with the god of alchemy, and when I do, I will let her know about you too. Until then, just stay with the others." "Okay," they nodded. "And since it might be a while until we will meet again, allow me to spend the rest of the month with you all." "Do you mind, Zi?" Su Yang asked her. She shook her head and said, "I was supposed to have a meeting with the Sacred Empress, but I skipped it, so I have plenty of time now." Thus, Su Yang proceeded to spend the rest of the month cultivating with everyone inside the Immortal's treasury without any breaks, at least with those who are able to cultivate. A month later, Su Yang said his goodbyes with the ladies inside the Immortal's treasury before leaving the place and returning to the surface in the frozen azure cave with Xiao Rong and Luo Zi. Of course, before they left, Su Yang handed the spatial device's authority to Luo Zi so that she could carry it with her back to the Sacred Lands. "You have some really lovely girls in there, Su Yang. I'm sure the others will also welcome their new sisters," Luo Zi said to him once outside, as she had plenty of opportunities to speak with the new family members during their month of entertainment. After taking the spatial device with her, Luo Zi asked him, "Well, what are your plans now?" Su Yang smiled and said, "I am going to Martial Heaven to join the boundless Yin-Yang sect so that I can improve my cultivation." The boundless yin-yang sect. Luo Zi raised her eyebrows. Although it wasn't shocking and quite reasonable considering his situation, it was definitely surprising, as she never expected to see Su Yang become a disciple again. Are you going to go in your other appearance? The boundless yin-yang sect will chase you away before you can even enter their sect gates. Luo Zi said to him. Su Yang laughed out loud and said, Zi, you dare underestimate me, but you're right. As much as I want to challenge myself by cultivating in the boundless yin-yang sect in that appearance, I don't have the luxury to play around. I will go with a new appearance, one that isn't as obnoxious. However, before I go to the martial heavens, he paused to clear his throat before continuing, I will need some more help from you. Luo Zi smiled and said, How much do you need? In fact, let me take you to martial heaven. Su Yang raised his eyebrows and said, That won't do. You will attract too much attention, the opposite of what I want. You think you're the only one who can use disguises. I can do that as well, and I have even better pills than what you were using. Although it's not easily noticeable, if someone really focuses on you, they will see right through your disguise. So you knew since the beginning but still decided to question me, Su Yang chuckled. Not only that, but I have even been secretly watching you ever since you entered the mountain valley. Luo Zi said with a big smile on her face, revealing to him that she'd actually been watching him this entire time. What? Is that why you were late? And you didn't even bother to help me. I even used one of my precious sword talisman. Su Yang was shocked to learn that Luo Zi had been following him for the last 2 weeks. Because it was very entertaining watching you struggle in such a manner, Su Yang. You don't get to see such scenes very often after all. Luo Zi laughed in a graceful manner, leaving Su Yang speechless. Chapter 919, leaving the frozen azure cave. Unbelievable. To think you'd let your husband suffer for your own entertainment. What if I died? Su Yang said to her in a joking manner. Luo Zi continued to smile and said, You think I'd let you die in my presence? No, but hypothetically speaking, I could have died. And I am telling you that's not possible. Su Yang shook his head with a defeated smile and he said, Anyways, jokes aside, since you're going to be coming with me, I will alter my plans a little. Let's go visit the god of alchemy first. This will be much easier with you by my side. The god of alchemy, Luo Zi raised her eyebrows. Yes, is there something wrong? I heard that she'd stopped concocting pills for some reason, but I need her to make me some pills. Well, she left her sect about 1,000 years ago and hasn't returned. Nobody knows where she went either. Su Yang frowned upon hearing this, but he didn't panic. After pondering for a moment, he said, I think I have an idea of her location. Really? He nodded and explained. Yes, she took me to this isolated place when she first started teaching me alchemy. That's the only place I can think of. Where is this place? Luo Zi then asked. To be completely honest with you, I also have no idea where this place is, but that is not to say I don't know how to get there. It's just that I don't know where the place is located exactly. I have tried looking for it before, but I couldn't find anything. It's probably her own little dimension or something along that line. Okay. But before we go, I will need to return to the sect to retrieve some money since I didn't expect to be traveling with you when I left. Luo Zi said a moment later. Okay, I will wait for you at the Frozen Palace. You know where it is, right? Yes. Also, if you're going to drop the others off, you can leave everyone but Bai Lihua and Wang Xuren behind, since they'll be coming with us to meet the god of alchemy. Do you plan on making them her disciple? She asked him. He nodded. I understand. By the way, one more thing, should I tell the others about you? You never gave me an answer, she suddenly asked. Su Yang silently stared at her as he pondered in silence. A moment later, he nodded. You can tell them, but make sure to do it within a concealment formation. Even though I am certain that nobody will leak this information, you never know when someone else is listening. I know, Su Yang. Who do you think you're talking to? Luo Zi said with a smile. and I will see you at the frozen palace in a few days." Sometime later, Su Yang consumed the supreme appearance-altering pill and returned to being a fatty. "I thought you were going to change appearances." Luo Zi raised her eyebrows when she saw this. "I will change it when I go to the boundless yin-yang sect. I will remain in this appearance for now since I kind of got used to it," he said. "Are you ready to leave?" Su Yang asked her. "Wait a moment." Luo Zi turned around and walked to the pond there. Su Yang followed her and stood beside her. "Do you remember when we worked together to acquire the azure lotus?" Luo Zi asked him after a minute of silence. "Of course. How could I forget? The azure lotus that lives at the bottom of this pond and 50,000 other cultivators trying to obtain it. However, with you by my side, it wasn't too much work. More like with you by my side. I was the one who needed the azure lotus. You were there just to help me," Luo Zi said with a smile. After another moment of silence, she spoke. "Hey, Su Yang. What is it? Let's come here again in 4,000 years, just me and you. That's when the next azure lotus is born." "Sure," Su Yang nodded. After spending a few more minutes staring at the pond, Luo Zi removed the concealment formation around the frozen azure cave. She then left the cave with Su Yang and Xiao Rong following right behind her. Once they were outside, they proceeded to fly over the mountain valley without a care in the world. Of course, the magical beasts in the air immediately noticed their presence and decided to attack them. However, before they could even get close, Luo Zi only needed to release some of her cultivation base to flatten the magical beasts instantly. Eventually, the other magical beasts stopped trying to attack them, and they managed to leave the mountain valley in just a few hours. Xiao Rong was speechless when she saw how effortlessly Luo Zi was killing the magical beasts that they had to avoid and run away from for the past 2 weeks, and they even crossed the mountain valley in such a short time. Once they arrived at the mountain pass that had the unknown entity at the bottom, Luo Zi said to them, "Stay close to me." She then retrieved a treasure that completely erased their presence, allowing them to fly over the mountain pass without alerting the entity at the bottom. "Master, will it be okay?" she asked him. He nodded. "Yes. You don't have to worry about it. The entity at the bottom won't notice us if we stay close to Ziyi, who has a treasure that will conceal our presence perfectly. Furthermore, even if it does spot us, she can defend it just fine." Xiao Rong felt relieved after hearing his words, but when they actually started flying over the mountain pass, she still felt some nervousness from it. Chapter 920, leaving frozen Asgard a few hours after leaving the mountain valley. Su Yang and the others also managed to leave the mountain pass safely. And since they had Luo Zi protecting them, there wasn't any need for them to use the hidden passages, allowing them to just fly straight through the frozen Asgard effortlessly, almost like the frozen Asgard had turned into a park for them. "I have been wondering for a while now, but who is this little girl? I can tell that she's also disguised, but she doesn't have a family seal on her." Luo Zi, as they made their way out of the frozen Asgard, Su Yang smiled and said, "Take a guess." When he told her about his experience in the other world, he purposefully left out details about Xiao Rong to surprise her. Luo Zi looked at Xiao Rong with a pondering look on her face. After a moment of silence, she spoke. "She's not human, so she's likely a magical beast. I find her aura a little familiar, but I cannot recall where I have sensed it before or what kind of magical beast she is. Here's a few hints. She is small, has incredible spiritual strength, and can even find treasures with ease. She's also extremely fast. She can find treasures." Luo Zi raised her eyebrows. There were only a handful of magical beasts with such a unique ability in the 4 divine heavens, and most of them are small. However, there is only one that is both fast and has strong spiritual strength. "Don't tell me she's a ghost cat." Luo Zi made an educated guess. Su Yang chuckled and said, "Close, but not quite." "What? What else besides ghost cats are fast, can find treasures, and even have strong spiritual strength, which is their specialty? What about a phantom cat? Phantom cat, the ancestor of ghost cats. How did you come across such a ridiculously rare ancient beast? She exclaimed. Do you remember the spatial device I gave you? I found her inside, he said. What? You found a phantom cat inside a spatial device? How is that even remotely possible? I don't believe you. Let me tell you about it first. I kept it out on purpose to surprise you. Su Yang proceeded to tell her about his experience inside the spatial device and how he found Xiao wrong. Unbelievable, to think someone from the heavenly order ended up in that world after their war with the Usura god clan. But that doesn't explain why there's a phantom cat inside that person's spatial device. Luo Zi said after hearing the story. I can only think of one possibility. Xiao Rong somehow entered the spatial device and got stuck inside. Although phantom cats and ghost cats can be born from nothing, it is highly unlikely that there was enough spiritual energy inside the spatial device to give birth to a ghost cat, much less a phantom cat. Why don't you ask her? I have, but she doesn't remember anything. Is that so? Then maybe you can take her to you-know-who and have her check out Xiao Rong. Luo Zi suggested. Su Yang smiled and said, I already have plans to take Xiao Rong to her. Who? Xiao Rong asked out of curiosity. Let's just say that she's an expert with ghost cats and the likes, he said. You'll know when you see her. Xiao Rong nodded. A week later they left the frozen Asgard and arrived at the nearest city. I will see you later, Su Xiao Yang. Luo Zi said to him. Yes, see you in a few days. Su Yang then went to the frozen palace with Xiao Rong while Luo Zi went to the teleport formation. Greetings, immortal fairy Luo. Everybody greeted her. The people waiting in line also greeted her before they made a path for her, allowing her to go first. Take me to the sacred city, she said. Right away. The workers immediately started working on the teleport formation. A few minutes later, they were finished. Luo Zi then paid the fees before entering the teleport formation. Upon exiting the teleport formation on the other side, Luo Zi retrieved her flying treasure and started making her way to the other teleport formation, the one that will take her to the sacred lands. Welcome back, immortal fairy Luo, they said to her. Luo Zi didn't say anything and entered the portal sometime later, arriving at the sacred lands. At the sacred lands, Luo Zi used her flying treasure again and quickly returned to her sect. Welcome back, sect master. The disciples there greeted her. I'm back. Luo Zi then returned to her own living quarters before taking out her communication jade slip and summoning everyone from the Su family within the sect, even those that were not at the sect. The first to show up was Wang Yongxuan. Sister Zi, welcome back. Wang Yongxuan said to her. I'm back, she responded with a smile. Despite trying to keep a poker face to not reveal anything to her until everyone gathered, Luo Zi couldn't help but smile when she saw Wang Yongxuan, as she could only imagine her reaction once she reveals the news to her and everyone else. You seem to be in a good mood. Are you willing to tell me what the message was all about now? Wang Yongxuan asked her. Just be patient, Sister Yongxuan. This is something that all of you should experience together. Everyone. You summoned the other sisters as well. This must be fairly important. Luo Zi nodded. Now I am really curious, Wang Yongxuan smiled. 3 days later, 12 women, 12 extremely beautiful goddesses gathered in Luo Zi's living quarters. Chapter 921. 12 goddesses. What's going on, Sister Zi? Did something happen? One of the 12 goddesses asked her once they gathered in her living quarters. This must be fairly urgent if you had to summon all 12 of us at once. Are we under attack again? Said another goddess. Luo Zi shook her head and said, No, we're not under attack, but this is definitely important, more important than anything that has happened for the last 2,000 years. Luo Zi then used her spiritual sense to make sure there was nobody spying on them, and then she used a concealment formation. covering not just the entire living quarters but also the entire sect as well. This dumbfounded the goddesses. They have never seen her acting so secretive. Once she was prepared, Luozi took a deep breath and spoke. "Fellow sisters, I only have one question for all of you." She looked at them with a solemn expression on her face. "Do you believe in Su Yang?" "What?" The goddess's eyes widened with surprise after hearing her question. "What do you mean by that, Sister Z? We need more context," one of them said to her after a moment of silence. "When Su Yang died 2,000 years ago, some of us believed that he was still alive while others hoped he's still alive. Do you all still believe or hope that he's alive?" Everyone there had a complicated and pained expression on their faces when Luo Zi reminded them of Su Yang's death. After a minute of silence, one of them said, "I believed that Su Yang was still alive at first, but 2,000 years have passed. If he was alive, he'd have returned to our side by now. As much as I want to keep on believing in him, I have to face reality. He's no longer with us. What's 2,000 years? I had to wait 5,000 years for him at one point," said another goddess there. The goddesses there began to give their thoughts on the subject. Wang Yongxuan then asked afterward, "What's the matter, Sister Z? Why are you asking us this? You usually hate it whenever we mention Su Yang." "Right. You would even scold us for it. Now you're the one bringing it up." "Something happened, right?" Luozi nodded, and to the other's surprise, she stood up and began loosening her clothes. "What are you doing?" they asked her. Once she loosened her robes enough, Luozi allowed them to fall onto the ground, revealing her beautiful figure. "What are you trying to tell us?" The place suddenly turned dead silent. After a moment of silence, Wang Yongxuan pointed at the right side of her waist with a trembling hand. "SS Sister Z, T, that HH how?" She spoke in a shaky voice. "Your family seal is active." "Impossible," another one exclaimed. The goddess began approaching Luozi to look at her family seal more closely. It's really active." "How?" Luozi showed a smile on her face as she wore her clothes again. Then she said, "Why don't you take a guess? There's only one way someone can activate their family seal." "Why, you're telling me that Su Yang activated it, that he's alive?" Wang Yongxuan asked her with a look of disbelief on her face. The smile on Luo Zi's face grew wider and she nodded. The entire room turned dead silent, with everyone trying to process whatever was going on. Once they realized the situation, tears began flowing from their eyes. "Where is he right now? I want to see him," one of them suddenly said. "How? What happened to him?" another one asked. The goddesses began bombarding Luo Zi with questions regarding Su Yang. "Calm down. I will explain everything to you in just a moment. But first, I want you all to look at this, since I'm sure that some of you are still doubting it." Luo Zi proceeded to take out an item and showed it to the goddesses. When they saw the items, their eyes widened with shock and all of their doubt vanished. The item in Luo Zi was a sword, an ordinary and somewhat worn-out sword that had two names engraved onto it. "Su Yang, Su Meiki." Su Yang actually gave you his sword. Normally, he wouldn't let it even leave his hands. Wang Yongxuan was shocked. "Yes, I was also surprised when he handed it to me before we separated." "So you really met him? Where?" "Allow me to explain," said Luo Zi. And she proceeded to explain everything that happened, starting from when she received the message from Mu Yuechen. "I will see you at the frozen azure cave in 3 months when the azure lotus blooms." That was the message Su Yang told Mu Yuechen to convey to me. This sentence is significant because it was the exact same sentence he said to me when we worked together to acquire the azure lotus. Thus, I immediately went to the frozen Asgard after hearing this message. Fast forward 2 months, I noticed a fatty and a young lady traversing the mountain valley. I watched them in secrecy, and to my surprise, the fatty was using sword will and the 9 astral steps, something Su Yang knew. Then I saw him use a sword talisman that released Su Yang's sword will. It was at this moment that I was almost certain that he was Su Yang, but I wasn't 100% certain until we finally met up in the frozen azure cave. Inside the frozen azure cave, the fatty removed his disguise, turning into Su Yang, at least a younger version of him. After that, he explained everything to me. What had happened in the eternal retribution cliff, where he has been for the past 2,000 years among other things. After listening to his story, I finally understood why our family seal didn't entirely disappear, only deactivated, and I also understood why he hasn't returned until now. Don't skip the important details, Sister Z. Tell us what happened to him, one of the goddesses urged, acting like an anxious child during story time when the story was reaching the climax. Chapter 922, Learning the Truth. I'm getting there, Luo Zi said with a smile. And she continued, anyways, the reason Su Yang died was because he'd been forced to reincarnate when he met some mysterious old man inside the eternal retribution cliff, and he reincarnated 2,000 years in the future in some unknown world outside the four divine heavens. What? He reincarnated? The goddesses were speechless after hearing this. Luo Zi nodded and proceeded to recall to the goddesses everything Su Yang told her, all of his experience within the unknown world until the moment he returned to the four divine heavens. Unbelievable to think something like this could happen. They all held an expression of disbelief on their beautiful faces. Sometime later, Wang Yunxuan said, Sister Z, I feel like you're still hiding something from us. Luo Zi chuckled and asked her, what makes you say that? It's just a feeling. You're right, there's still actually two things I haven't revealed yet. One, Su Yang brought with him from the other world more sisters. The goddesses raised their eyebrows. They have more sisters in the family now. That wasn't too surprising, though. And it's just more than one or two. There were like a dozen of them, and all in just a few years. What? There's a dozen of them? The goddesses were shocked now. While they were used to Su Yang bringing back a new woman every time he would return, he would usually only return with one every few hundred years too at times. However, bringing back a dozen new women in just a few years was incredibly shocking and unprecedented. Of course, it has been over 2,000 years for them, but for Su Yang, only a couple of years have passed since he reincarnated. What are they like? One of them asked Luo Zi. They're all really young. Less than 100 years old, which isn't surprising considering the world he was in. They are mostly mortals in that world, and the sovereign spirit realm is considered the peak. Heavens, I don't even know what to make of that. How long has it been since we have mortals joining our family? A bunch of new junior sisters, huh? At last, I will no longer be the youngest here. Luo Zi nodded and said, I will introduce them later. As for the second thing, Su Yang has agreed to impregnate me, she said with a blissful smile on her face. What? The goddesses exclaimed simultaneously. In fact, he's already filled my body with his yang qi. I will be pregnant soon. Pregnant? Impossible, he has always been against that. One of them then said. I know it's shocking. Trust me, I was also shocked when he asked me to have his child, even though I have always wanted it. However, I am not lying. In fact, he already has 5 children with the new sisters. They're all really cute babies. I even held one of them in my arms, his son. What? Su Yang has babies now. Out of all the shocking news they have heard today, this was definitely at the top. Quickly, let me see the new junior sisters. I cannot wait any longer. One of them suddenly urged. Do you want to see the sisters or the babies? Luo Zi chuckled. Follow me. We'll have to go somewhere with more room. Also, we are not to talk about this subject unless you are absolutely sure that there's nobody around and that you're within a concealment formation. Luo Zi reminded them before she removed the concealment formation and led them to another place, one that was much more spacious. Sometime later, Luo Zi created another concealment formation before retrieving the spatial device and opening the Immortal's treasury. Minutes later, they arrived at the second floor where the others were living. Wow! There's way more than a dozen people here. The goddesses were speechless when they saw how many people were living in this place. Hello, fellow sisters. Allow me to introduce you to the Su family of the Lonely Fairy's refined palace. Luo Zi said to the Su family from the mortal world. The goddesses then proceeded to introduce themselves. After that, Su Liking and the others introduced themselves. Are those really Su Yang's children? Wang Yongxuan asked them in a trembling voice after their introduction. Yes, do you want to hold on to her? Lion Li nodded. Please. Lion Li then handed Su Leer to Wang Yongxuan. When the other mothers saw this, they also handed their children to the other goddesses. You know, when we asked Su Yang to impregnate us before, he would always refuse. It's quite shocking that I have his children in my arms right now. One of them said. Yes, he told us about it before. He said it was mostly because he had too many enemies and he didn't want unnecessary trouble. Sun Jingjing said. Indeed, he does have a lot of enemies, the goddesses agreed. The ladies proceeded to talk to each other about Su Yang. A few hours later, Luo Zi said to them, as you already know, all of you will be staying at the Lonely Fairy's refined palace for now. If you wish to continue living in this place, that is completely fine, but I suggest you live outside with us, where the quality of spiritual energy is countless times better. Su Yang also told me to assist in your cultivation. Although you may have been experts in your previous world, in the 4 divine heavens, your cultivation bases are incredibly weak, almost non-existent. Therefore, the Lonely Fairy's refined palace will train you into powerful cultivators. Most of you are in the heavenly spirit realm and below for now, but I promise you that within 10 years, you will all reach at least divine realm. Until you're powerful enough, you will have to stay inside the sect, meaning you cannot leave the sect for whatever reason, as this is for your own safety. Luo Zi then turned to look at Wang Shuren and Bai Lihua and continued. As for you two, who intend on learning alchemy from the god of alchemy, you will be coming with me. Su Yang has decided to change his plans and visit the god of alchemy first. I understand. They both nodded. Chapter 923, above the 7 mortal spirit realms. Are there any questions? Luo Zi asked them afterward. Zai Xingfeng raised her hand and said, Senior Sister Luo, you said that we'll be able to achieve divine realm within 10 years, but how far ahead is that compared to the heavenly spirit realm? Ah, right. You're only familiar with the sovereign spirit realm since that is the peak in your world. Well, as you already know, above the heavenly spirit realm is the sovereign spirit realm, and above that is the divine spirit realm. The divine spirit realm is the end of the first major realm, the 7 mortal spirit realms. As long as you're within one of these stages, you're still considered as a mortal. The next major realm is the 5 divine realms, starting with divine origin realm, then divine lord realm, divine sovereign realm, divine saint realm, and lastly, divine emperor realm. The 5 divine realms is often considered as the most important since that is when you start to truly experience what it's like to be a cultivator. Above the 5 divine realms is the 4 ancient realms, ancient sovereign, ancient saint, ancient emperor, and lastly, ancient immortal. Here, you'll be considered an immortal if you reach ancient emperor. After breaking through ancient immortal, you'll enter the immortal ascension realm. The immortal ascension realm consists of 9 levels, such as first level immortal ascension and second level immortal ascension. After attaining all 9 levels, you will be able to attempt to enter the 3 celestial realms: Celestial King, Celestial Emperor, and Celestial God. However, the 3 celestial realms are special in the way that only those who have celestial chi in their danshan can achieve. Without it, no matter how powerful or talented, you will not be able to reach this realm. So, immortal ascension is considered as the peak for most people in the 4 divine heavens. Do you understand the power balance in the 4 divine heavens a little better now? Wow, there are so many cultivation levels. To think Su Yang wasn't exaggerating when he called us mere mortals. The ladies from the mortal world were left speechless by the overwhelming amount of cultivation levels above the sovereign spirit realm. Many of them believed that the heavenly spirit realm was the peak of cultivation at one point. To think they were not even considered as true cultivators in this vast world. It was simply too shocking. Anyways, we will teach you more about the cultivation levels and our world later. First, you should prioritize getting used to the sect. Also, we won't force you to become disciples if you don't want to, but you will all be disciples in name in order to protect you. If you decide to join us, just let one of us know and we'll make it happen. Although the Lonely Fairy's refined palace is a sect to most people, it's really just a home for the family. One more thing. Once you leave this space, don't talk about Su Yang or even mention him, as there could always be someone listening and you won't even know it. The fact that he's still alive has to remain a secret for now to keep all of you and even us safe. If you want to talk about him, I will keep this spatial device open in a secluded area so that you ladies can enter whenever. The ladies nodded. Luo Zi then turned to look at the mothers and said, I know it will be difficult for you to focus on cultivation with a baby in your hand, so one of us will take them off your hands when you need to cultivate. Do you mind? The mothers shook their heads. Great. Luo Zi then looked at the 12 goddesses and smiled. As for whoever gets to take care of the babies, we can take turns. They nodded with excitement in their eyes. Then I will give you some time to prepare. I will also take this time to prepare your new living quarters in the sect alongside other things. Tomorrow, we will figure out who will be teaching who. After talking for a little longer, Luo Zi and the others left the Immortal's treasury. This is very exciting. I wonder what it's like outside. I cannot wait, Sun Jingjing said afterward. It sucks that we won't be able to see Su Yang for a while, but if we focus on our cultivation, I'm sure we'll meet him before we even realize how much time has passed. Zhu Minji said. Meanwhile, after leaving the Immortal's treasury, Luo Zi returned to her living quarters with the others. It's been a very long time since I have felt this kind of excitement. Not only do we now have new sisters, but we also get to live with Su Yang's descendants, said one of the goddesses there. Sister Z, where's Su Yang right now? You never told us. I want to meet him. Me too. Calm down, sisters. As much as I want to let you all see Su Yang, it'll attract unnecessary attention if you all visit him at once. That's fine. We can disguise ourselves and we won't all go at once. It isn't fair that you're the only one who gets to see Su Yang, Sister Z. The goddesses began complaining to her. Fine, fine, but let me speak with Su Yang first. I will let you all know his answer when I come back, said Luo Zi. When will you be back? One of them asked. I don't know, but it shouldn't take too long. A few weeks at most, probably, she said. In the meantime, I will leave the junior sisters to you. Of course, if you're busy with other things, I completely understand, as this was quite sudden. Nonsense. There is nothing more important than taking care of Su Yang's descendants, one of them said. Although we can take turns taking care of the babies, who will go first? And how long do we get to spend with the babies before we have to switch? Another one asked. Luo Zi smiled and said, You ladies can figure that out by yourselves. I have to return to Su Yang's side now. You're leaving already? Well, not immediately. I still need to prepare for our trip, but tomorrow should be my last day at the sect. Okay, stay safe. And make sure you speak with Su Yang regarding letting us meet him. I know. She nodded. Chapter 924, sparring each chapter other sometime later. Luo Zi went to prepare for her journey with Su Yang, while the other goddesses began debating on who should be the first person to take care of the babies and how long they get to take care of the babies. As the most senior one here, I should be first in line to take care of the babies. That's not fair, Senior Sister Zhu. The one with the most experience with children should go first. How do we know who has more experience? One can even lie about their experience. We need something more definitive. Then let's settle this the traditional way. The goddesses looked at each other before nodding in silence. They proceeded to make their way to a certain area in the sect, a massive arena with multiple stages available there, and many disciples could be seen fighting on these stages. "Greetings, senior sisters." The disciples there stopped whatever they were doing to greet them, and even the ones fighting on the stages stopped fighting to greet them. They were then greatly shocked when they saw all 12 sect elders gathered at the same time, as that only normally happens during important events and celebrations within the sect. This is the first time they have seen so many sect elders in the arena at once. "Don't mind us. You girls can act like we're not here," Wang Yunxuan said to them. Despite nodding their heads, the disciples knew that it was going to be an impossible task to ignore their presence, especially when there's so many of them. The 12 of them proceeded to stand there in silence, patiently waiting for an available stage. About half an hour later, there was finally an open stage. When the goddesses saw this, they immediately jumped onto the stage, attracting the disciples' attention again. "The rules are simple. We will limit our cultivation base to the divine origin realm. If your strength exceeds the divine origin realm, it will be an automatic loss. If you get kicked off the stage, it will also result in a loss," Wang Yunxuan said to the others. "We will decide the matches through the lottery, and we will treat this as a tournament." Wang Yunxuan then retrieved a box with a hole on the top. "Pick your numbers. Those with the same numbers will be fighting each other." The goddesses proceeded to pick their number. Once they all had their number, those that picked number 1 remained on the stage while the others left the stage and stood by the stage as spectators. Are the senior sisters going to spar with each other? Why, I have never seen them fight before. I don't know, but this is very exciting. I wonder what it looks like when the sect elders fight. The disciples also gathered around the stage and became spectators. Sometime later, once they were ready, the 2 goddesses on the stage started to fight. Boom! The ground immediately started shaking when they began exchanging techniques and attacks with each other. Wow! The disciples were both shocked and terrified when they started fighting in a manner that looked as though they were really trying to kill each other. Although there was a formation around the entire arena that prevented one from dying even if their head explodes as long as they remained inside the formation, it was still shocking to see the sect elders going at each other's throats in such a vicious manner. Senior sisters. If you don't mind me asking, why are you all fighting with each other? Is this some sort of practice? One of the disciples there decided to ask them. "No, this is not for practice. We're trying to decide on something, but we couldn't come to an agreement, so we decided to use this method to come to a conclusion. As this is the most straightforward method we can think of, the strongest will get to decide." I see. Although the disciples understood why they were doing this, none of them dared to ask what they were fighting for. "Take this. That won't be enough to defeat me, senior sister." After clashing for half an hour, one of them emerged victorious when she literally made the other's body explode into a bloody mess, splattering her blood and organs all over the stage. The disciples sucked in cold air when they saw this. However, a moment later, the goddess that had been killed returned back to life as though nothing had happened, and the bloody mess on the stage also cleaned up itself. "Not bad, junior sister. You have improved tremendously since our last spar." Sometime later, the ones who got number 2 went onto the stage. Once the winner was decided, the winner from the first fight and the winner from the second fight began fighting on another stage while the losers also fought each other, almost like a real tournament. The disciples remained in the arena to watch them fight, refusing to leave, as it was incredibly rare to witness the sect elders display their skills, and they were even able to learn from watching the fight. Eventually, other disciples in the sect also began appearing in the arena when they heard about the situation. The goddesses fought each other for the entire day until the following morning when they had to return to the Immortal's treasury to assist the junior sisters. "We'll finish this later," Wang Yunxuan said to them. Sometime later they gathered at the Immortal's treasury. "Good morning, senior sisters. Morning, junior sisters." After their greetings, Luo Zi brought them outside the Immortal's treasury, leaving only Wang Xuren and Bai Lihua behind. "I will be leaving the sect now. Take care of the junior sisters while I am away," Luo Zi said to them. "Do you even need to tell us that? We'll take care of them even without your reminder. Have fun with Su Yang, Sister Zi. Don't forget to ask him about letting us meet him." Luo Zi nodded. She then swallowed a pill that transformed her appearance before leaving the sect with the Immortal's Treasury Chapter 925. Their mentors. Once Luo Zi left the sect, the goddesses said, "Before we show you your new living quarters, we should figure out who will be taking care of who. That should be easy." One of them said, and then she continued, "Which of you here mainly uses the sword?" Lion Li then raised her hand and said, "I mainly use the sword." "Me too," Wu Jingjing also said. "Good, then I will be your mentor starting today. Once again, my name is Kayan Yuner. Nice to meet you." "We will be in your care, Sister Kayan." A moment later, another goddess stepped forward and said, "My name is Mei Lingling, and I am an expert with medicine and pills." "Junior Sister Liking, Junior Sister Menji, I can smell the aroma of medicine on you too. Want to follow me?" Zhu Menji and Su Liking nodded their heads. "By the way, I'm curious, why aren't you following the other two to meet the god of alchemy? She's definitely much better when it comes to medicine," Mei Lingling asked them. "Well, I study medicine, but it's not really my main path. I am actually a dual cultivator and I don't know how to concoct pills," Su Liking said. "I see. That's fine. Even if you aren't an alchemy master, I can still teach you. And to tell you the truth, none of us are actually dual cultivators. We only started dual cultivation because of Su Yang. However, we can still teach you about dual cultivation with our experience." Zhu Menji then said, "I wanted to study under the god of alchemy at one point, but after giving birth to Zhu Jiayi, I decided to give up and focus on taking care of her. Maybe in the future, once Zhu Jiayi is all grown up and more dependent, I will seek the god of alchemy for tutelage. That's a respectable choice as well. I may not be as good as the god of alchemy when it comes to medicine, but I am still one of the top alchemy masters in the four divine heavens. I will prepare you for the day you decide to study under the god of alchemy." "Okay. Thank you, Senior Sister Mei." A moment later, another goddess stepped forward. "Any normal cultivators amongst your group? I'm Yu Ning. I don't really specialize in anything besides cultivation." Hearing her words, Su Yin, Zhang Xiu Ying, Fang Xioro, and Zai Xingfeng stepped forward. "Great, then you'll be in my care. I will do my best to help you all become powerful cultivators. Please take care of us, Senior Sister Yu." They bowed to her. "My name is Xing Aiying, and I am a master of formations and illusions. Does anyone here want to learn formations?" Li Xiaomo quickly stepped forward and bowed to her. "I would like to study under you, Senior Sister Xing." "Okay. I have the most experience when it comes to dual cultivation among us sisters. Who are dual cultivators here? My name is Jai Xiaofen." Sun Jingjing, Fang Zhelan, and Qi Yue stepped forward. "You're also a dual cultivator." Jai Xiaofen looked at Qi Yue with raised eyebrows as she looked too young to be one. "I haven't experienced dual cultivation yet, but I have been studying it ever since I was young. I also intend on becoming a dual cultivator," Qi Yue said. "All right. I will teach you every dual cultivation technique that a woman must know, especially if you wish to satisfy Su Yang. He's not easily satisfied after all." Jai Zaya often smiled. "Of course, if the others want to learn them as well, you're free to study with us as well." By now, only 4 people were left that didn't have anyone assigned to them: Yan Yan, Hong Yuer, Ke and Qin Liang Yu. A moment later, someone stepped forward and looked at Qin Liang Yu and asked her, "Are you interested in body refining? I can tell from your physique that you have trained your body before." Qin Liang Yu nodded and said, I used to train my body when I was still in my tribe since we're required to hunt spiritual beasts to survive, and we didn't really have any proper cultivation techniques. Then would you like to study under me? I can make your body reflect to even powerful treasures but also keep its softness and slender figure, but it won't be easy. I will be in your care, senior sister. Chin Liang Yu nodded. Jia Jinghua is my name, she said afterward. Now it was just Hong Yu or Ke Yu and Yan Yan left. I am planning to serve under Sister Tang in the future, Hong Yuer suddenly said to them. Sister Lingxi, you want to serve her? The goddesses were surprised to hear this. They thought she was one of Su Yang's women this entire time. Hong Yuer nodded. Oh, you must be the one that occupied Sister Lingxi's soul, Wang Yunxuan said. Want to study under me in the meantime? I'm the most familiar with Sister Lingxi out of everyone here, so I can teach you everything I know about her. Hong Yuer quickly nodded her head. I'm Wang Yunxuan. Hong Yuer. Sometime later, I have been wondering this for a while now, but isn't the spiritual energy around her weird? Someone there suddenly said while pointing at Yan Yan. Yes, I have also been thinking about that for a while now, said another person. Su Liking then said, she has a special talent that allows her to communicate with the profound qi around her, at least in our previous world. I think Su Yang called her Heaven's favorite before. What? Heaven's favorite? The goddesses were shocked when they heard this term, and they all stared at Yan Yan with great interest. Young lady, can you communicate with the profound qi in this world? Wang Yunxuan asked her a moment later in a somewhat nervous voice. Yan Yan looked around for a moment before nodding her head. Yes, they have been trying to communicate with me ever since I came outside. Heavens! Wang Yunxuan and the others mumbled in a low voice after hearing her words, seemingly speechless.